The Fox Game of the Week is back with an interleague matchup on baseball's biggest stage. When we last saw the Yankees, they were celebrating a dream season of 125 wins, a world championship, and comparisons to the greatest teams ever. Fast forward to 1999. The challenges of real life and a surprising struggle within their own division has the Yankees' attention as they try to live up to nearly impossible expectations. Across town, pressure continues to mount on the Mets as big-name signings have not produced the anticipated results. New York's constant glare would be a little less harsh with a winning weekend in the Bronx. Two teams, two leagues, bragging rights to one Big Apple. Next on Fox.
It's the Budweiser Game of the Month, brought to you by Brewery Fresh Budweiser, official beer of Major League Baseball. This Bud's for you.
Heck, it's baseball's Game of the Month, and welcome to the grandest stage of all in Major League Baseball, Yankee Stadium in the Bronx for interleague baseball action. The New York Mets and the New York Yankees. Beautiful day for baseball, everyone, as we prepare here in the booth for this one. I'm Joe Buck along with Tim McCarver. What a perfect place to start interleague baseball. And now we look at this matchup, Tim, and you got the Mets. The timing of this series is interesting, such that the Mets have lost 7 straight, and now they have to take on these world champions, and things are seemingly rolling downhill for New York.
And the New York Mets are trying to play it down. I'd play it down too, but consider this. If they lose the next 2 games, they're going to have a 9-game losing streak, and the vice is going to tighten next week. If they win 2 games, however, the 7-game losing streak's forgotten.
Heck, all the New York Yankees have done since Joe Torre got to the Bronx is thrive. You've had a chance to watch them on a day-by-day basis. What is it that makes them different from every other team in baseball?
Don Zimmer, who managed the Yankees for the first 6 weeks, said that's exactly what the Yankees are this year. They're different. Are they better? How can you be better than a team that won 114 games? Keep in mind that the Yankees have lost 5 key elements: Darryl Strawberry, Tim Raines, David Wells, Graham Lloyd, and Homer Bush.
But they have added Roger Clemens, and they are still the world champions of baseball. We get ready for the Mets and the Yankees. Stay tuned. First pitch after this from your local Fox station.
Fox Saturday Baseball is brought to you by Brewery Fresh Budweiser, official beer of Major League Baseball. This Bud's for you. By E-Trade, the #1 place to invest online. By GMC Sierra, do one thing, do it well. And by Energizer Advanced Formula Battery. No battery lasts longer.
Welcome back to Yankee Stadium as the Yankees take the field. More cheers than boos for the homestanding Yankees here in the Bronx. Yankee Stadium, Derek Jeter. He's going as good as any player in the major leagues right now. Might be going the best of anybody in the American League or National League. A look at Bernie Williams and what he has done. He elected to come back to New York, stay a Yankee. His average is up, his production a bit down. Let's take a look at the Budweiser starting lineup for the New York Mets. They will lead it off with ex-Yankee Ricky Henderson. He's in left field with Edgardo Alfonso batting second at second. John Olerud is hitting third at first. Mike Piazza cleans up. He's the catcher. Bobby Bonilla, who is right in the center of controversy for the New York Mets, is the DH. Robin Ventura at third base. Brian McRae in center. Ray Ordonez the shortstop. And Roger Cedeno in right field batting ninth. How about the defense for the New York Yankees?
Tony Carrasco, his 3rd start in left field. At left field position for the Yankees, still not solid. Bernie Williams, a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner. Paul O'Neill in right field. Scott Brocious at third. Derek Jeter at shortstop. Chuck Knobloch at second. Tino Martinez at first base. And Jorge Posada with a fine throwing arm behind the plate. And El Duque on the mound. Orlando Hernandez, defected from Cuba December 26th. 1997 on something that floats. They haven't decided yet whether it was a boat or a raft or whatever.
There's a little controversy there.
That's
Nobody,
right.
if it was a little craft, it was something that was just pieced together. Who knows, but he got here.
So a craft or a raft, he got here. 11 starts this year. He has won 17 ball games for the Yankees over the last 2 years since coming up last June 3rd. High leg kick. Knows how to hide the ball. He's very difficult to hit and to time, especially from the wind-up position. He has learned to use four-seamers inside the left-handers today, even at Yankee Stadium with the short porch, and an outstanding curveball that he will throw behind in the count. 1-0, 2-0, 3-1.
Well, there's a look at the second-year major leaguer, Orlando El Duque Hernandez. So good in the postseason last year for the world champion Yankees. As always, this broadcast is available in Spanish by utilizing the SAP button on your television. There's that familiar quinella that we're so used to seeing. Joe Torre and Don Zimmer. That might be a fitting term there.
Quite fitting with the Belmont in about 3.5 hours. Bobby Valentine has lost 7 in a row. Interestingly, when Bobby Valentine took over the Mets 3 years ago, the Mets were in the process of losing 8 in a row. Bobby taking over for Dallas Green in August of 1996.
And there is so much to talk about with regard to Bobby Valentine, which I'm sure at some point this game will allow us to get into. You get the mixed reaction as you do for really anybody who's announced in this series. But Ricky Henderson walks to the plate with a .253 average. Has been much of the time so far this season on the disabled list with a bum right knee. Stolen base department, he has swiped 11. Started out red hot for the Mets, but now his average at .253, the all-time stolen base king. And we're glad you're with us here at Yankee Stadium. This place is packed. Over 56,000 here last night. Ricky Henderson hangs in there, leans over the plate, and takes a strike. Last night, Ricky was drilled on that front elbow.
Ricky Henderson, a great night last night. A couple of stolen bases, a run scored. His last time up, hit on the left elbow, and obviously causing him to wear that protection today.
The 0-1 from Hernandez, fouled back 0-2. Hernandez last year a record of 12-4. So far this season 5-5 and a big ERA of just under 5. As he deals with Hernandez with Edgardo Alfonzo waiting on deck. That'll get Ricky away from the plate. Ricky likes to hang over that plate, and it should never be a surprise that he gets hit on that front elbow.
Elbow music last night, chin music today. Bad tunes for Ricky Henderson.
And a 1-ball, 2-strike count. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and one of the most patient hitters in the history of Major League Baseball. 3rd all time with regard to career walks. Babe Ruth leads the way, Ted Williams, and then Ricky Henderson. Leading off and being a valuable leadoff hitter is such a lost art, and these guys are so tough to find that you've got Ricky Henderson. As he flies one to right, O'Neill is there waiting for it. Henderson is the man in charge of doing that for the Mets, and he is gone for the first out here in the first inning. 1 down. Mel Stottlemyre with the hipper shades in the middle between Chris Chambliss and Joe Torre. And Stottlemyre, there they are.
Mel Stottlemyre telling us before the game that it's vital for Orlando and Hernandez to stay ahead. It's almost vital for any pitcher, but particularly a guy like Hernandez.
Alfonzo clunks one into center, and that's going to drop in for a 1-out single. And the Met fans get a chance to cheer here at Yankee Stadium early in the first inning, a 1-out single. And then the Yankee fans get to boo and try to drown out the Mets cheers. And here's another look at that hit by Alfonzo.
Looked like a fastball. A little double clutch by Alfonzo. Hit it off the end of the bat. You can't be everywhere. Bernie Williams feeling it. One thing to point out, the Yankees with a much better defensive outfield than the New York Mets, and that could come into play. Terrific defense on the infield for both teams. Piazza does not have a strong throwing arm, but Posada does.
1 on, 1 out for Olerud. Long-time Toronto Blue Jay takes a pitch out of the strike zone for ball 1. I'll let you tell the folks where that missed. Was that high? Was that outside?
Call him a high strike.
They didn't get that direct. I don't think all these umpires got that directive from Major League Baseball. Call the pitch just over the belt. Yeah, right. 1 on, 1 out, 1 ball, no strikes. There's one in there for a strike. 1 and 1. Darrell Cousins is behind home plate today with John Shulock at first, Dale Scott at second, Joe Brinkman at third, and we'll be second-guessing Darrell Cousins all afternoon. They love us. 1 ball, 1 strike, 1 on, 1 out. Just underway, interleague action, Mets and Yankees, and a check on Alfonso, who has stolen 2.
When Alfonso runs, it's usually part of a hit and run, and Olerud with a contact bat. You can do so many things with Olerud or Alfonso for that matter.
A ball and a strike on Olerud. The opposite way, as he does so often, left field, Carrasco, a diving catch, 2 down. We talk about the differences between these two teams. Defense in the outfield is a big difference between the Mets and Yankees.
Tony Carrasco coming in, a good jump and the dive to make the play. Fine play by Carrasco. That ball gets by him. Could have been a run for the Mets.
And a big play as you see the reaction by El Duque because of the man stepping in at the plate, Mike Piazza. Had a chance to drive in a couple of runs early last night, missed that opportunity. But the .320 hitting catcher stands in with a little different look with the socks and the pants. It's amazing what baseball players try to get their team out of a funk or get their average back up. This guy doesn't have to worry about his average year after year. 1 on, 2 out. And a breaking ball for a strike over the outside corner.
That's interesting, Joe, because I'm not familiar with superstitions in other sports, but I know baseball players, for the most part, are very superstitious.
There's the look. For a very stylish guy, I mean, this, in a way, is a matchup of cover boys. You got Jeter on one side, who's on cover after cover, and Mr. GQ at the plate with some nasty-looking socks. The 0-1 pitch. Strike 2.
Well, if Hernandez gets Piazza out right now, he's got to go out of the strike zone, preferably with breaking balls in the dirt, low and away.
There's our split screen Fox baseball cover boy shot. Jeter, the heartthrob on your left. Well, he's no longer there. Now we look at a banner for Jeter. He's the bomb. 0-2 the count on Piazza. 1 on, 2 down. Crowd wants a strikeout. Crowd gets a strikeout. Good start for El Duque. Mets leave a man after a half inning at the stadium. No score. A look at Masato Yoshi, today's starter for the New York Mets. A look at the Budweiser starting lineup for the New York Yankees. Chuck Knobloch will lead off at second base. Derek Jeter bats second and short. Absolutely red hot. .373 average. Paul O'Neill, Bernie Williams, Tino Martinez at first, Chili Davis the DH, Jorge Posada catching, Tony Tarasco at left, and Scott Brocious is hitting ninth at third base.
We'll restate, there is no greater difference in the outfield and infield defense on any major league team. Henderson, McRae, Cedeno, Ventura, Ordonez is spectacular. Alfonso, Olerud, Piazza behind the plate with a poor throwing arm.
And here is Knobloch leading off, hitting .254, and he gets one over his head.
Interesting.
Interesting start from Masato, and a look at his numbers for the season.
4-1 for the month of May. And here's a guy that the Mets were thinking about relegating to the bullpen a month ago, and now he's their top starter.
Knobloch pops it up. He's been doing this a lot, getting a lot of these balls in the air down the right field line, and it's caught by Roger Cedeno with a nice catch up against the tarp. Well, there is a big improvement in right field as you look at the numbers for Knobloch as he exits. When you play in an American League city and you can DH Bobby Bonilla, you get an out on a ball hit such as that. If that's not Cedeno and it's Bonilla, it's strike one on Knobloch instead of out one here in the first inning.
Yeah, we talked about defensive liabilities. Roger Cedeno can make up for whatever liability he has with his speed, and he got to that ball quickly.
Here's Derek Jeter. He has reached base in 56 consecutive games dating back to the last 4 of last season, and he hits a rocket to short from a squatting position. Ordonez makes the play, 2 out.
That was a low tracer. Easy play for Ordonez while taking a rather tricky hop.
One scout after another will tell you, and it's not unanimous, but they believe that Ordonez right now is the best defensive shortstop in the major leagues, and that is taking into consideration the guy in Cleveland, Omar Vizquel. That's saying a lot.
I beg to differ with that. However, I think Omar Vizquel is the best defensive shortstop in baseball because I think he makes more consistent plays than Ordonez.
2 out, nobody on. O'Neill pops it into left center field. Back to get it is Ricky Henderson. He knows what to do out there in this stadium. And a 1-2-3. Quick and easy first inning for Yoshi. After 1 here in the Bronx, no score. They can ship me home tomorrow as long as they send the checks on time. Here's Bonilla leading it off and taking a big breaking ball in for a strike from Orlando Hernandez. That's what Bobby Bonilla said yesterday. As you look at the numbers for a guy making $5.9 million this year and next. Upset about being placed on irrevocable waivers. At least that report is out there. And that was Bobby's reaction, who, by the way, has a legitimate bad right knee. He is gimpy, and with good reason, as he takes a pitch a little bit up. 2 balls and a strike from Hernandez.
Hernandez thought that pitch was a strike on the inside corner. There's Steve Phillips, the general manager of the Mets, after a shot of Bobby Valentine.
So that is part of the controversy with the New York Mets, and once this thing slows down a little bit, I'm sure we'll get into more specifics about the Bonilla situation in New York as he's out in front, pops it foul, backing out of play 2-2. Bobby Bonilla, in his second stint with the Mets, it didn't go right the first time, and now he's an older player with a bum right knee and trying to make it at Shea Stadium. And so far, it isn't working out with that average of 153. He rips it foul.
Also put on irrevocable waivers, Brian McRae, starting center fielder. I mean, here are 2 guys starting against the world champion New York Yankees that if somebody had claimed them 2 days ago, they'd be gone. Nobody's going to claim them with that kind of salary. 3.75 for McRae, 5.9, as Joe said, for Bobby Bonilla.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Bonilla out in front again.
Now keep in mind that teams don't put premier players on irrevocable waivers. Obviously, because somebody would take them. But you put the dollar sign. You put, for instance, Robin Ventura on irrevocable waivers, he'd be sucked up immediately, even with his salary.
Bonilla grounds one through the right side, and he's on to start the second inning for the Mets.
Good at bat by Bobby Bonilla, who gets on top of this high fastball and drills it to center field. Fouled off a couple of tough pitches. Good low ball hitter, hitting a high fastball there.
He can still hit.
Oh, absolutely.
There is no doubt about his ability to swing the bat. You know, a couple of years ago when he was in Baltimore, he didn't want to DH. He is DHing in this series for the Mets, and that's his best spot. Unfortunately, the Mets predominantly play games where he can't DH.
Yeah.
So he's got to play right, and with that bad right knee, he struggles in the outfield. Here's Ventura, a .268 hitter, 9 homers, 42 RBIs. That total of 42 runs batted in, good for 8th in the National League in his first year as a Met. They play behind Bonilla at first. They don't hold against him, and Ventura pops it into left center field. Well hit. Williams back. Track wall and off the wall. Bonilla will end up at third. It's a double for Ventura. Second and third, nobody out.
Bernie Williams faked catching that ball. He realized he couldn't get to it. Watch him put the left hand up, or the glove right there. He knew he didn't have a chance. He thought he would hold Bonilla, but with nobody out, Bonilla's not going to try to score anyway. There it was right there. Ball off the wall, and Robin Ventura with his 15th double as a Met.
You look at Bonilla, who made sure that that ball wasn't catchable by Bernie Williams, and now you've got second and third, nobody out for Brian McRae. Mets trying to get a second inning lead here at Yankee Stadium, and that should do the trick. Knobloch throws to first for the out. An RBI ground out by McRae, and there's the combination of McRae and Bonilla giving the Mets a second inning 1-0 lead.
It's also the combination of Brian McRae doing two things with that ground ball. He not only plates Bonilla, but he moves Ventura to third base with one out. A lot of first ball hitting so far. McRae on top of the fastball. Bonilla scores, Ventura to third, and now the infield in.
He played with Roger Maris. I hear some say that Maris was one of the best at just driving the ball on the ground to the second baseman to pick up the RBI in that spot.
Roger Maris was a great all-around ball player.
The infield has to come in for Ray Ordonez. Runner at third, one out, and strike one. Ordonez, another guy, Tim, pardon me, that had a bad knee, refused to go into a ball game allegedly last Saturday. That didn't sit well with Bobby Valentine, and it took him a few days to get back into the lineup. His number's 248 with 11 RBI.
Anytime Ordonez is up there with less than 2 outs, you have to think squeeze. That's why the first pitch strike was important for Hernandez.
Sidearm delivery and a comebacker. There's the good athleticism. He throws the glove to first for the out. The ball was stuck in his glove, and so he threw the entire thing over to get out number 2. What an intelligent play by El Duque.
Watch this. You think that won't be in some highlight plays? That reminds me of Terry Mulholland 12 years ago against the New York Mets, who did something similar to that. Couldn't get it out of his glove, threw the glove. Unbelievable.
And it's a good reminder for all you youngsters out there, if you're going to catch a glove with a ball wedged into it, use two hands like Tino Martinez did. Runner at third, 2 out. And a strike is in at the knees to the number 9 hitter, Roger Cedeno. There it is. Martinez secures it. And then he was ready to throw the glove to the plate in case Ventura was trying to score. He's at third, 2 out in the 0-1 pitch. The bunt by Cedeno, showing off the speed. Poor throw, safe, back to the plate. Safe, and it's 2-0 Mets.
Jorge Posada has got to take over here and tell Orlando Hernandez the play's at third, not first. Too much speed at the plate. Robin Ventura was 2/3 of the way down the line. Third base is the play, but you can see Posada pointing to first. He could see Ventura. He's the only guy on the infield who could see Ventura too far. He's pointing to first. No play at first.
And not only that,
bad call by Posada.
Not only that, Posada didn't get back to the plate.
Right.
He was watching the play at first, and
right.
because he wasn't back at the plate, the throw beat the runner Ventura, but he was past the tag.
Here it is once again. The bare hand, the slip. Once he slips, he's got to look to third. The only guy who can see that play is Posada.
The runner at first, Cedeno, they credit him with an RBI base hit. And Cedeno, who leads the major leagues with 28 stolen bases, might think about running here.
It's an ideal combination for the Mets because you have a guy who takes a lot of pitches at the plate and a guy like Cedeno who can steal. Watch for him to run early in the count.
There he goes. Swing and a miss, and the throw to second. There's Major League leading number 29 for Cedeno. And a hit could mean another run.
If a runner like Cedeno gets a good jump, the strongest of arms won't throw him out, as Posada just proved. The one hopper to Jeter, no chance to get the speedy Cedeno.
So Cedeno at second with 2 down, and Ricky Henderson, who has been a tutor to Cedeno so far this season, tries to knock him home. The 0-1 pitch. Instead, El Duque looks back at Cedeno. So really a wise, good baseball instinct play on the part of Hernandez when he threw the glove over to first. And an ill-advised throw on the bunt dropped down by Cedeno. They had no chance to get him.
But a good base running play by Robin Ventura.
No doubt. The 0-1 pitch with a runner at second, 2 out.
If Ventura tries to score right away, the play's in front of Hernandez. He just underhands the ball to Posada. But since he couldn't see him, then it's Posada's responsibility to pick up the runner instead of point to first, with Ventura that far down the line.
2 balls and a strike on Ricky Henderson, who has driven in 6. He has hit 3 New York Met home runs. Rather quiet Yankee Stadium right now. Mets fans might be a little intimidated to make too much noise at this point. That gets away from Posada. They count 3-1. Met fans are outnumbered here today, but they have to like this start, and Bobby Valentine and the Mets have to love this start with the kind of jump they've had to their step here after losing a tough one last night.
Here it is once again with Roger Cedeno laying down the bunt, and the return throw from Tino Martinez. As Joe was saying, Posada didn't get back to the plate. If he's back to the plate, that brings the throw of Martinez back to the plate. If he's up the line, Martinez can't throw it to the plate. No reason whatsoever Posada left home plate. I don't understand it.
Here's the 3-1 to Henderson with Cedeno swiping third, and that is out of play to make it a full count. Look at the legs on Cedeno. Yeah. The way he is put together. I mean, it's no surprise with that kind of speed that he's leading the league, but there's so much technique involved, and for that, he's gone to the man at the plate, Ricky Henderson, to learn how to steal bases in the major leagues.
That's why the Mets have to figure out a way to play Cedeno every day.
He takes off again as Henderson strikes out, and the top of the second is over. Well, 2 runs on 3 hits in the inning. Something out of the ordinary on this from Orlando Hernandez. They got the out, but eventually the Mets got the run.
Fox Saturday Baseball is brought to you by Pep Boys. Cars like us, people love us.
Welcome back to Yankee Stadium, where the Mets have a 2-0 second inning lead. Bernie Williams will lead it off. You know, there were 13 Subway Series here in New York between 1921 and 1956, including 7 from 1947 to 1956. The Yankees and Dodgers, Yankees and Giants. And, well, this is a little taste of that with the New York Mets visiting Yankee Stadium for the 2nd time in the last 3 years. Got a delay here as the camera person, the photographer guy, has got to move out of the hitter's background out in dead center field. Would you think it dawned on you when you're the only guy out there that maybe you shouldn't be there?
At least he had a dark blue shirt on.
I don't know. I figured, hey, places else is crowded. Strike 1 on Bernie Williams. Williams hitting .341, good for 5th in the American League. Tino Martinez and Chili Davis will follow Bernie to the plate. Guy's still out there.
Yeah, kind of crouching down. He put his camera down, however.
1 ball, 1 strike.
There he is. Checking his guns out now.
His arms.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what I meant. The players' terms for arms are guns.
Now they're going to have somebody go out there and get him out of there. Bernie Williams spun out of the batter's box. Home plate umpire Darrell Cousins waited, and now he's going to have to leave. He's got enough clothes for the weekend out there. What are they getting out of there? A couple of shirts,
a couple of sandwiches, water.
Nice of the bellman to come help him get his stuff out of dead center field. You'll be staying in the hitter's background today, sir? Yes. 1 ball, 1 strike. That's down the left field line. A long run for Henderson, but it's out of play. Strike 2 on Bernie Williams.
Mike Piazza is wearing catcher cam, and our thanks to Mike for donning the camera this afternoon. As you can see, the camera on either side of that mask. Have some shots right into your living room.
It's a little lighter this year.
Yeah, it is.
Which is a big hit with catchers around Major League Baseball. A look at Masato Yoshi, a ball and 2 strikes on Williams. 2-2. I know that first pitch from Yoshi got your attention to Chuck Knobloch. It got Chuck's attention, and Yoshi rolled through the first inning 1-2-3.
Hernandez coming inside to Ricky Henderson. Ricky Henderson hit last night. The first pitch to Knobloch up and in.
Backing out of play off the bat of Williams. Still 2-2.
When you look at Yoshi, you don't see a dazzling pitcher. He doesn't have a snapping breaking ball. It's more of a slider or a slurve. Doesn't throw that hard. Rarely hits 90 on the radar gun. But his splitter, he lives and dies with that splitter. That's why he must stay ahead to use that pitch.
Here's the 2-2 to Williams. That's just up and away. 3-2. Tino Martinez will follow. And then Chili Davis here in the second inning for the Yankees, who trail by 2. It was 1-2, now 3-2. Back to catcher cam on 3-2, and Williams took it just high for ball 4, a leadoff walk. And a poor start to the second inning for Yoshi after his teammates just got him 2 runs.
And that was that splitter, and when hitters are not in a situation where they don't have to swing at it, for instance 1-2, 0-2, they don't. So it's imperative for Yoshi to stay ahead. Most of his swinging strikes are on balls out of the strike zone or that splitter that's down. And as we said, not an overpowering guy with overpowering stuff.
And while you could tinker with that scouting report, those words would fit just about everyone in this Mets rotation, with the exception of the left-hander Leiter. Bobby Jones, very similar. Rick Reed, very similar. You referred to him as a poor man's Greg Maddux last night. And it was a compliment.
Absolutely.
Tino Martinez takes a strike.
Al Leiter, the guy with the overpowering stuff. Now when you get to the bullpen, it's a different story, because they have as strong a bullpen as any team in the majors.
Williams takes off as Martinez pops up into center. Long run for Ordonez, and he can't make the connection. 2 are on with nobody out. Well, we talked about defense in the outfield, and that ball was in the air for an awfully long time, and they relied on the shortstop to go a long way to try and catch it.
When a ball has that much hang time, the center fielder or left fielder has to make that play. Otherwise, it's got to be a circus catch by Ordonez, who tried it, but Ray couldn't come up with it. So a hit that shouldn't have been a hit for Tino Martinez. That ball's got to be caught. If you don't catch a ball like that, then you position too deep to begin with.
And now Chili Davis with the tying runs on and nobody out in the second inning. They have a guy who can run out in right field, the Mets do, with Roger Cedeno. And center and left, a different story. 2 on, nobody out. And Davis takes a little low for ball 1. Brian McRae still a pretty good center fielder. Ricky Henderson has a tough time getting around out in left. And it was glaring on that play. The 1-0 to Davis. Double play ball to short. Ordonez to Alfonso and on to first. 6-4-3. Runner at third, 2 down. A Budweiser game break. I've been waiting so long to say this. Let's go back to Keith Olbermann in the Fox Network Center.
Joe, these late highlights from 1986, we mentioned it before, Terry Mulholland anteceding Orlando Hernandez by just these scant 13 years. Notice who that first baseman is taking the glove work. The great double glove work is none other than our own Bob Brenly. Joe, Tim.
Thank you, Keith. We knew he was a smart guy, and Bob Brenly did what Tino Martinez did, catch that glove with 2 hands, and Orlando El Duque Hernandez did what Mulholland did. Got an out. It looked like it might stop the rally, but a good bunt, poor decision, and the Mets got the run anyway. It's a ball to Posada. Here's another look at El Duque today.
Glove story, part 2.
I like El Duque's effort a little more because he went overhand to first base. That takes a little more athletic ability instead of an underhanded toss.
It does.
Runner at third with 2 down. Alfonso will have to feed Yoshi for the out to put out 4-1. And after the Yankees put their first 2 on in the second, a double play ball off the bat of Chili Davis. The Yankees come up with nothing.
Put to his mouth. Goes to his mouth sometimes. Honey? He goes like this, sir. Isn't that his rule?
Fox sounds of the game and Bobby Valentine talking about Orlando Hernandez. So something to keep an eye on as Hernandez works the third with the Mets leading 2-0. He worked his forehead there.
That's to his brow. Remember, a pitcher cannot go to his mouth while he's on the mound. He must step off. Unless it's a cool evening, and today does not qualify as that.
Alfonso into right center field. Williams glides to get it, 1 down. And Edgardo is 1 for 2. That's the way we start the third inning. That'll bring in John Olerud, who flied out to left field his first time. His average at .330, and all he's done since coming to the National League and the Mets is hit. Heck, the Blue Jays paid most of his salary for that first season as a Met. Now he has been renewed to a new long-term contract, and he is as valuable a hitter as these Mets have. 1 out, nobody on. And a strike from Hernandez.
Matter of fact, John Olerud and Bernie Williams are the only 2 hitters who have won the batting crown the same year that their team has won the World Series since 1966, when Frank Robinson did it, winning the Triple Crown with Baltimore.
Up the middle, and Olerud gets a hit right on cue. A 1-out single for Olerud to add to that .330 average.
When you look at Olerud's swing, he's got a very strange stance, but he is so quick through the hitting zone. Almost call that invisible lightning. Those forearms get through the hitting area in a hurry.
He's on at first with 1 down for Mike Piazza. Piazza struck out back in the first inning. And his average sitting at .318. Sidearm delivery, and it misses for ball 1. It's amazing to look at the numbers that Piazza has put up. He's at .300 or better in each season from 1993 through last year. And only 2 other Major League players have done that. One, you know, is Gwynn. The other is Dante Bichette. And he's a freak in a good sense because he's a catcher, which you know better than anybody, wears you down throughout the course of a season, and he does it with power. What a talent. Mike Piazza signed to a long 7-year, $93 million contract. He has been richly rewarded for those talents. 2 balls, no strikes. Good one.
He is a catcher who is beaten up because of the Mets pitching staff. They have a lot of pitchers who have to stay down. They throw splitters. Al Leiter throws the cut fastball. That's often down to right-handers. So that takes the toll also. I mean, here's a guy who was booed on 2 coasts last year. Los Angeles, New York.
2 balls, 2 strikes.
And it seemed like the last month and a half of the season, if the Mets won a ball game, Piazza had a key hit under the fastball from Hernandez.
The Mets falling short in that wild card race, and Bobby Valentine, in 14 seasons as a manager, has yet to have one of his teams finish first in its division. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 on, 1 out. That's foul. So Piazza hangs in there against Hernandez, and we talked during the postseason last year about the ingenuity of a guy like El Duque, who seems to develop new arm angles while he's out on the mound during the course of a game. And he will use them all against a right-handed hitter like Piazza. From down under, 2-2 pitch, misses down and in, 3-2.
See if Bobby Valentine sends John Olerud here with 1 out, count 3-2. John Olerud, one of the slower runners in the National League.
Olerud is going, and the 3-2 pitch grounded through the right side. They start the runner, and instead of an inning-ending double play, it's 1st and 3rd, 1 away. Let's take you to the other member of our group, Kurt Menefee, who's with Baseball Fan, at least for the afternoon. Spike Lee. Kurt?
That's right, Joe. A big sports afternoon here in New York. Knicks and Pacers tonight, but sports fan emeritus Spike Lee decided to start your day off with a baseball rivalry.
Yeah, no horses for me, though. No horses.
Now, you told me you grew up a Mets fan, but now you're a Yankee man. Is this a conflicting day for you?
Nah, you know, this is my son's, I want to say this is my son's first baseball game. He's been in several Knicks games, but he's enjoying the game, and we're going to try to leave like the 7th inning so we get back to the Garden in time.
All right, you want to say something to Tim, right?
Tim, what's up? How you doing?
How are you, Spike?
1st and 3rd, 1 out. That was odd.
Well, when Kurt Flood died, Spike Lee interviewed Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, and me
So
about
there's
Kurt's,
a history there.
There was the that was the catch there.
Hi, Spike. I'm Joe. 1st and 3rd, 1 out for Bonilla. He already has a hit today, and he takes ball 2 low and away, 2-0.
The disturbing thing with Olerud on at third base, Piazza on at first, the disturbing thing in these situations is the inability of Hernandez to throw a double play ball. He's thrown 1 this year in 42 opportunities. 1.
That's backing out of play, 2-1. So Spike Lee will renew his Garden rivalry with Reggie Miller tonight. Here today, taking his son to his first Major League game. This is a good way to be introduced to the game of baseball in person. Mets and Yankees interleague series at Yankee Stadium. The 2-1 to Bonilla. Hit a ton into right field. O'Neill back to make the catch. Tagging at third is Olerud, and there will not even be a throw. Bonilla produces a run, and it's 3-0 Mets. Big swing by Bobby, got under it and sent O'Neill back to the track in right.
He sent O'Neill back to the track, and by sending Olerud, he stays out of the double play. So instead of leading off the top of the 4th inning, Bobby Bonilla drives in a run in the top of the 3rd inning. Otherwise, you have the 4-6-3 double play, as you explained, Joe.
Saw the reaction of Hernandez. He didn't want to look right away. I think he thought that might ride out of here with that short porch in right. 1 on, 2 out. And Ventura takes a big breaking ball for strike one. Back to sounds of the game.
Hey, you hit into two double plays yesterday. We've got to stay out of this one today. Maybe create a little hole, make things happen.
And there you have the explanation.
Create a little hole.
And that's precisely what we talked about. Stay out of the double play by starting the runner. And there's the explanation with the two double plays in last night's game. And it leads directly to a run. 1 on, 2 out. Runner at first for Ventura. Strike 2 as that foul tip hit the mask of Posada.
A lot of folks are inclined to think because you have a mask on that those don't hurt. They do.
It's like a right cross.
Yeah.
Piazza, the runner at first. The key hit in this inning after the 1-out hit by Allroot. And Ventura, check swing grounder to Brocious. Goes the long way. And the inning comes to a close. But the Mets get another, add to their lead. 2 hits in the inning and a sac fly by Bonilla. He's been involved. 3-0 Mets. Bottom of the third inning, Yankees come to the plate against Yoshi. It'll be Tarasco, Brocious, and Knobloch, the 8, 9, and 1 hitters for New York, down by 3. Yankees, that is. And Yoshi brings it to Tarasco. Here's a big opportunity for Tony Tarasco, who's bounced around over the years, to solidify a spot, at least in that rotation out in left field that the Yankees have been using for the last couple of years.
Tony with Atlanta, Montreal, Baltimore. He was the right fielder.
No.
Jeffrey Meyer. I want to say it. Sorry.
That's down into the right field corner. Curling and hoping for extra bases. Cedeno gets it back in. All right, that's a perfect lead in. Go ahead. Tarasco has a leadoff double.
It was lower than when Tarasco was playing right for the Orioles in Game 2 of the ALCS 2 years ago when Jeffrey Meyer interfered. This one lined down the right field line. Oh, we had to get that out of the way. To continue doing that for the next decade, and as we see it on camera, catcher cam.
Take a look at it coming in and going out off the bat of Tarasco, and you're not really guilty of anything as you watch it bounce around out in the right field corner, because Jeffrey's name came up earlier in the week when Frank Pulley and the replay controversy happened down at Pro Player Stadium in Miami. Oh, we have to see it. We say it, we have to see it. I guess that's the policy of Fox. The fly ball by Jeter. Jeff. Hi, Jeff. And that's Tarasco pointing to Richie Garcia, and then eventually up at El Nino, Jeffrey Meyer. Runner at second, nobody out. 0-1 the count on Brocious. 1 ball, 1 strike to Scott, who's hitting .238. 6 homers, 22 runs batted in.
Next few innings, key innings for the Yankees, because if they're going to get the Mets pitching, they have a better chance of getting their starters than they do their bullpen.
Brocious fouls it away. That's why when you hear a good play by a fan of the upper deck, there are some reports now that Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach, the New York Mets, is in trouble and might be the guy to go if this New York Mets season doesn't turn around in a hurry. It is ludicrous to me. He's done a great job helping this team, along with Bobby Valentine, maybe overachieve a little bit in the last couple of years, and I think he's gotten the most out of these arms in the starting rotation. Runner at second, nobody out. Brocious stays in there.
I couldn't agree with you more. Bob Apodaca, one of the big reasons 2 years ago that the Mets pitchers turned around. However, for the month of May, the Mets had a month, and I mean, it was a nightmare. It was the worst earned run average since the first month of the franchise back in 1962, and that was a Mets team that lost 120 games of the 160 they played that year.
Ball and 2 strikes. Brocious at the plate. Runner at second. Nobody out. That gives us more time to talk about this. Apodaca, and I think you would agree, has done the most with this rotation. Al Leiter's got a bum left knee. He hasn't been able to push off and follow through like he did last year. Oral Hershiser, they're trying to get the most out of an aging right-handed starter. You look at Bobby Jones and guys like Rick Reed. They have really stepped up and been very solid major league pitchers under the tutelage of Apodaca.
Guy like Rick Reed, Bob was his pitching coach in AAA at Norfolk 3 years ago.
It's not that Apodaca all of a sudden has lost his touch with this starting rotation, but injuries have played a part. And you look at the comparison from last year to this year, there isn't much of a comparison. And you look at their ace, Al Leiter, with an ERA of up near 6.5, a big reason why. But he is not healthy. The 2-2 pitch, runner at second, nobody out. Into right center field. That ball is down for a hit. Cedeno plays it on a hop and to score Tarasco. It's a 3-1 game.
Talk about an intelligent approach to hitting. Scott Brocious with a game-winning double last night when the Yankees won 4-3. And from catcher cam, looks like Yoshi tried to come in, did not get it all the way in, and Brocious with a rocket to right center. 2 strikes going the other way, protecting the outside part of the plate. Fine piece of hitting by Brocious.
And now back to the top of the order. Why American League managers will tell you the importance of the number 9 hitter to turn that lineup over and get back to the top. And here's Knobloch. The tying run at the plate, 3-1 game, and a pitch high for ball 1. Knobloch has hit 4 out. Had that Padre killing 3-run home run in game 1 of last year's World Series. 1 ball, no strikes on Knobloch. 2-0. Knobloch fouled out to right back in the first on a nice running catch by Roger Cedeno. He now moves over more into right center as the 2-0 pitch is brought home. Right down the middle, 2-1.
Brought home appropriate there, Joe, because that's exactly what's happening. Fastball right into your living room. Of course, your catcher's going to set up in the middle of the plate, outside part of the plate for Piazza. With the count 2 balls and no strikes. Knobloch taking all the way.
2 balls and a strike. That'll get out of play, 2-2. Knobloch has had a difficult time. Another good play by Payne in the upper deck. He's had a difficult time getting on top of pitches.
Watch his front shoulder. That's the reason. See the slope right there? When the drop of the back shoulder causes the lift of the front shoulder, you can't help but be under the ball and pop it up. That's why the front shoulder is the key to pitching, and it's the key to hitting.
That's why hitters hitting 253.
Yeah, that's why hitters are always trying to drive that front shoulder right back toward the pitcher.
Another pop-up, same spot, same person caught it in the upper deck. And still 2-2.
Pitchers and hitters refer to that as flying out. When that front side flies out, you don't give your hands enough credit. You can see Knobloch right there, that front side opening up prematurely. It's the most dominant thing that hitters and pitchers do wrong, is flying out of there.
2-2 the count. And that was a good piece of hitting, at least to spoil a nasty pitch from Yoshi.
Sometimes, Joe, hitters don't give themselves credit that their hands are fast enough. They think they have to do it with the front shoulder and clear the front shoulder. I know there's a golf analogy waiting to be had, but I can't make one. I'm a 20 handicap.
Neither can I. I wish I could. The 2-2 pitch. This time it gets out in front. Still 2-2. Oh. E10. Get down on this ball, son. But he got a little airtime, and he gets more. Runner at first with nobody out. Still a 2-2 count on Knobloch. Another pop foul.
Right before that last pitch, Brian McRae, the center fielder, moved over toward right center field. He's doing it again. It's pretty good policy. With 2 strikes, the good hitters try to go the other way. You saw Brocious do it, and Brian McRae trying to cheat a few steps toward the gap in right center. Big gap now is in left center.
Again, the 2-2 pitch. Knobloch with very good at bat here, waiting for a mistake and fouling off some tough pitching.
Knobloch, the second toughest batter to strike out in the American League, and he's showing you why.
10th pitch of this at bat coming here from Yoshi. Another 2-2 delivery. 1 on, still nobody out. 1 run in for the Yankees. Into left field. What a good at bat. Brocious will head to third. It's played by Henderson. Knobloch into second with a double, and the runner's in scoring position to tie it for the Yankees. Down by 2. It's second and third. Nobody out.
A great at bat by Chuck Knobloch, and the Yankees will take advantage of any time Ricky Henderson fields the ball. A short fly ball to left field with a man on third, less than 2 outs, send him. Watch the throw from Henderson. Ricky hit on that left elbow last night, and it's to his credit that he's in there today.
Well, you know Ricky's not going to miss a series if he's able to walk out there at Yankee Stadium.
That's right.
They'll have to carry him out of there. And it's second and third with nobody out after this play by Henderson. Just getting it back into the infield.
I think that's going to be the Mets' policy today. Whenever a ball's hit to left field, Ordonez go out, and instead of being a cutoff man near the infield, he goes farther out than he normally would, so Henderson can give him the ball and let Ordonez throw it home, or second, or third.
Now Jeter. Jeter grounded out his first time. Been on base in 56 consecutive games, and a hit might tie it. Strike 1. How good is Derek Jeter becoming in such a short time with the Yankees?
They have 2 charismatics running in the New York area today. One here at Yankee Stadium, and the other in about 2 hours now at Belmont.
So good, so young.
Only 24 years old. Improving every year, and I mean vast improvement every year.
Fights that one off into right center, should get a run home. Both runners tag, both runners advance. It's a 1-run game. 3-2 Mets here in the third. Well, you can bet that Derek Jeter is going to be an all-star. I'll look at today's all-star ballot update brought to you by Pepsi. In fact, Jeter leads the early voting at short. A lot of Indians out there, including Manny Ramirez, Kenny Lofton, Roberto Alomar, Jim Thome. Ken Griffey Jr., the leading vote getter. As we look at the National League, no surprises there, especially with McGuire at first and Sosa in the outfield.
In the outfield of the National League, 3 right fielders lead the outfielders in voting. In the All-Star game, it's just outfielders, not outfield positions that are voted upon.
Runner at third with 1 out, and O'Neill will try to bring home the tying run. 3-2 Mets, 3rd inning.
A lot of times Bobby Valentine, 1-run ball game, even though it's the 3rd inning, will have his infielders move in with the pitch coming. They didn't do it on the first pitch. We'll see if they do it on the 2nd or 3rd pitch.
O'Neill gets the job done. Alfonso makes the play at first. It's a 3-3 game as O'Neill drives in his 32nd run of the year. So the Mets, who blew a lead in last night's game, blow a 3-run lead here early today.
I'll guarantee you that Bobby Valentine is thinking right now that 9 times out of 10 times I'd have the infielders moving in. Had I done that then, Knobloch can't score. It's an AB for Paul O'Neill as it stands, and with the infield back, he scored. Tie ball game.
2 doubles in the inning, a sacrifice fly, an RBI ground out. Good fundamental baseball by the Yankees. Some good at-bats mixed in, and now Bernie Williams with 3 runs home, 2 out, nobody on here in the 3rd. And a ball from Yoshi. It's worth saying again, these Yankees have to take advantage of the Mets starters in tight games late. That New York Mets bullpen about as good as there is. 1 ball, no strikes. 1 out, nobody on. Make it 2 out, nobody on. Scoreboard has 1. And Alan Watson, Pat Mahomes, a lefty and a righty, already getting loose for the Mets. Tell you how desperate times are here on June 5th for the Mets. Yoshi's given up a 3-run lead, and now he misses high with ball 3 to Bernie Williams, and Masato is losing it in a hurry here. Two out, bases empty, in the 3-0 pitch to Williams. 3 balls and a strike.
Bernie Williams is one guy that Joe Torre does not usually give the hit sign to on a 3-0 count. Bernie becomes a little anxious, a little overly anxious. He'll give it to Paul O'Neill, give it to Tino Martinez, but not to Williams.
3-1 pitch. Full count. Sounds of the game with Joe Torre after the O'Neill at bat.
Great at bat. Nice at bat.
Talking about Chuck Knobloch, and the Yankees then scored 2 runs on no hits. A sac fly by Jeter and an infield ground out by O'Neill. But that was a terrific at bat by Chuck Knobloch.
3 balls, 2 strikes on Williams. And that's the opposite way. Should be extra bases. Will they run on Henderson? Williams puts his head down but stops. And that's a bit surprising that Williams wasn't thinking double coming out of the box.
In my mind, Joe, that's not surprising. That's a bad base running play by Bernie Williams. You have got to make Ricky Henderson throw you out, particularly after already seeing him throw on the ball by Knobloch. Bernie quit too soon right there. Bernie, one of the hardest base runners in the major leagues. I mean, here's a guy, the Yankees are down 9-0. He runs hard all the way, but he gave up prematurely on trying to go to second base then, in my judgment.
Now the question, do you run against Mike Piazza, who has struggled behind the plate and throwing out base stealers? There he goes. He didn't run on the hit. He runs on the steal, and he's gone. Mike Piazza gets Bernie Williams to end a long 3rd inning for Masato Yoshi. The Yankees come up with 3 to tie. We go to the 4th inning, a 3-3 game at Yankee Stadium. We go into the 4th inning. Back to work is Orlando Hernandez, a 3-3 game, and now we're going on camera. That means we have to say something brilliant. I haven't said anything brilliant. This is the 4th year of Fox Baseball. But anyway, it's been fun being here at Yankee Stadium. I know you had a great time here last night working here locally, and you said at the end of the game, this has been fun. And it's nice to come to the ballpark and be able to leave, even for people who see a game day after day, and say, you know what? That was a fun day at the park.
I've been a little confused when the players have had comments this week saying that, well, it's for the fans. Well, no kidding. Of course it's for the fans. Absolutely, and it's good for the fans. And I'll guarantee it's good for the players, too. There's that extra little juice that you don't normally see in an early June ball game. Can't help but be affected.
I guess it's pride, or I don't know what it is with Major League players, but they don't seem to want to admit that they're excited to play a regular season game.
You know, it's the nature of baseball, Joe, because you play 162 games. I think the players are so grilled. They grill themselves. They try to get themselves in the mood of that one day at a time. You hear all those cliches, or one day at a time, things like that, and you try to take that into a situation like this with all the hype and the hoopla and everything. But it does affect the players, in my view.
Brian McRae homered in last night's game. Had a nice evening. Drove in a run with an RBI ground out his first time. It's a 3-3 game now and a 2-2 count to McRae leading off in the 4th inning. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You hear that you can't hang on to a loss too long. You have to put the wins behind you and move on, look to tomorrow. And while they're cliches for a reason, because they're pretty accurate.
They're true. Right.
2-2 pitch to McRae is grounded to Knobloch. He would rather underhand it than overhand it these days. He made a throwing error in last night's game. And speaking of throwing errors, let's look at these two catchers. Todd Hundley, who used to start for the Mets, is struggling in a Dodger uniform with that throwing error. A game against the Cardinals out in L.A. And then last night, Tim, Mike Piazza hit John Shulock in the caboose. But now he comes up with a perfect throw to get Williams to end the 3rd.
Bernie Williams running on Piazza when he should have run on Henderson.
1 out, nobody on, and a floater floats wide to Ray Ordonez. Ordonez with 1 out, nobody on, takes ball 2, 2-0.
Ray Ordonez and Orlando Hernandez. When they were in Cuba, Orlando Hernandez pitching for the Industriales. And guess what team Ordonez played for? The Metropolitans in Cuba. And here he is coming to New York. He plays for the Metropolitans. Guy can't get away from it.
I read a quote by Ordonez talking about the history of the Yankees and the history of Yankee Stadium, where he said, people in Cuba don't know much about the history of Yankee Stadium, and I think a lot of people there would disagree with that analysis. And part of Ray Ordonez as he lines one into right, caught by O'Neill, 2 down. Well, the CDW.com blimp tour and its eye in the sky camera proud to provide you with live shots 1,000 feet above Yankee Stadium. There's a look at the blimp overhead, and not knowing much about blimp flight, this would seem to be a good day to fly a blimp. Little breeze, no threatening weather in the area. Things rocking and rolling a little bit up there.
A little bit, yeah.
Base is empty for the number 9 hitter, Roger Cedeno. Ball 1 from Hernandez. Base is empty with 2 down for Cedeno, who has a single and is hitting over 320 as he takes a looping breaking ball in for strike 1.
In effect, the Mets send Hundley to the Dodgers. Charles Johnson, the catcher for the Baltimore Orioles, now went to Baltimore, and Cedeno came from the Dodgers, and Benitez came from Baltimore. It was a terrific deal, as it's turned out, for the New York Mets. 2 great players in Cedeno and Benitez.
And while Todd Hundley is a fan favorite in New York for good reason, and personally a favorite of mine, getting a chance to watch him over the years, he has really struggled to the point where it has affected the pitching staff, in my estimation, with the Dodgers, with those throwing problems behind the plate. You can see Dodger pitchers trying to vary their delivery to the plate, get a guy on. All of a sudden, you're thinking you're going to have a guy at second base. And it's affected one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. There's ball 4 to Cedeno. First walk handed out by Hernandez. No doubt that this is a pleasant surprise.
No. There's a lesson to be learned. The Dodgers stayed with him for 4 years. He was on that Albuquerque, Los Angeles shuttle. The one lesson to be learned is you can't give up on speed too early. I know the Dodgers were patient, but the Mets wanted him in the deal. They got him, and he has paid huge dividends thus far. Look for him to run here. I think the Yankees will pitch out the first or second pitch.
At least a check on Cedeno, who not only stole second the last time he was on in the second for his major league leading 29th steal, but then was off and running when Ricky Henderson struck out to end the top of the second. Right now, Cedeno is pretty much running at will. And another look from El Duque.
Mookie Wilson talking to Cedeno. Mookie Wilson, the most popular player in New York Met history, is the first base coach and a brilliant base runner in his own right.
All-time stolen base leader for the Mets. There he goes. Cedeno off and running. The throw by Posada too late. And Roger Cedeno is becoming a force in the National League with what he can do when he gets on base.
He chose the right pitch too. He chose the slower breaking ball. Cedeno with that straight in slide. No hook sliding for him. Throw a strong throw, a bit of a short hop for Knobloch to handle, but no chance to get him. Too big a jump.
Jorge Posada couldn't come up with a good throw or a good enough throw to end the inning. You look at opposing base stealers. 25 out of 34 for Posada. But he has met his match and then some with Roger Cedeno here this afternoon. He's at second now, 2 out, a 2-out hit to give the Mets the lead right back after the Yankees tied it in the bottom of the third. Mentioned last time, Ricky Henderson has knocked in only 6. One ball, one strike. Crowd quiet as they watch Henderson, who played here at Yankee Stadium as a Yankee between 1985 and March of 1989. And is keeping an eye on Cedeno. Normally you'd say, well, he's not going to be running here. But that wasn't the case on 2 consecutive pitches with Henderson at the plate back in the second. 2 out in the inning, and he's the go-ahead run. 1 ball, 1 strike. There he goes. And a check swing comebacker to El Duque will end the inning. He got it out of the glove. And it was just a nothing play.
Routine.
Routine. Subway Series. That's a Subway. We go to the bottom of the 4th inning of a 3-3 game. Tino Martinez will lead it off for the Yankees. Bottom of the 4th inning of a 3-3 game. Martinez, Chili Davis, Jorge Posada against Yoshi. We're allowed 3 runs. Last inning. That's hit in the air down the right field line at the track at the wall into the upper deck. Tino Martinez puts the Yankees on top. Tino Martinez, whose production is down only 27 RBIs to this point in the season. Chili Davis goes the opposite way for Ricky Henderson. Having trouble with his son, doesn't see it. It falls right next to him. And Davis ends up at second base with nobody out. Martinez breaks through with his 8th home run of the year, and now Ricky Henderson, even with the glasses on, couldn't see that pop-up.
We talked about it in the first inning. There is no bigger difference on any major league team between the outfield defense and the infield defense of the Mets. The outfield deplorable defensively. The infield terrific. And Ricky Henderson losing this ball in the sun after the Martinez home run. So a double by Chili Davis. Tino Martinez had a little looper in the left center earlier.
When you do not have a dominant pitching staff, especially a dominant starting rotation, you better back up what you have on the mound with a defense that can run down balls in the gaps.
Boy, is that true.
Posada feeds the first baseman Olrud with a ground ball, and he flips to Yoshi for the out. Put out 3-1, but a good at bat by Posada to get Davis over to third. Now only one out. But if you can't go get it in the outfield and you don't have a strikeout type starting rotation, well, you're begging for trouble. Sounds of the game, Joe Torre on the home run by Martinez.
Yep.
That's it.
That was the yep of the game.
You got it. Yep, he got it. Upper tank here at Yankee Stadium to put New York Yankees out in front. And now a double by Davis. A ground out to the right side. The infield will come creeping in with this pitch to Tarasco. And it misses low for ball one.
Infield moving in. They started back, but Joe Torre, privy to Bobby Valentine's poise in the middle innings of the infielders starting back and then moving in. One run down, you don't want to go further. They'll move in with the pitch.
Tarasco takes a ball. It's 2-0.
The disadvantage for an infielder in doing that, and now the halfway sign, so the infielders are playing middle with Chili Davis on at third. That's good strategy right there. But the problem with moving in, if the ball's hit to your right or left, you don't get as good a jump on it. So the infield halfway now with Tarasco hitting.
The 2-0. Foul. Talked to Tony La Russa about this specific play, and you see more and more teams doing it because in some managers' estimations, it bothers the hitter. We talked about the hitter's background earlier with that photographer out in center field. If you have more movement around the pitcher during the pitch, well, he feels, La Russa, and I would imagine Valentine, that it can bother the hitter.
I think there is an element of surprise to it.
That's the left side, a pop-up. Will it stay in play? Ventura can't get there, and it's out of play for a 2-2 count on Tarasco.
I think if you do it more than once, you lose the element of surprise. Ventura just out of Robbins' reach into the camera well there. I think if you have a hitter that's locked in up there, they're not going to see infielders moving in. I don't know if I agree with Tony on that. But there are an awful lot of managers that are using that particular play now, including Bobby Valentine.
They're halfway in. Runner at third, Davis. One out, and the 2-2 to Tarasco's popped up. That will be a big out for the Mets if somebody can find it in the sun. Ventura does. 2 down. What a big out as Tarasco misses the RBI chance, and it's a runner at third, 2 down in a 1-run game.
Pop up. Everybody looks up.
And you can see how difficult it is for anybody. And there's a little sunscreen shade on top of that catcher's mask for Piazza, but it is a high, clear sky here today in the Bronx. Runner at third, 2 out, and Posada fouls one out of play. Brocious looking for the 2-out RBI hit. And how many times did he deliver last year for the Yankees?
MVP of the 1998 World Series. 98 RBIs, hitting 7th, 8th, and 9th last year. Just a terrific year on the DL in the month of April with a sprained ankle. Really, it's almost the latter part of spring training. It's almost like Scott's just finished the latter part of spring training, because he had spring training, went on the DL for most of April with that bad ankle, messed up his stroke, and it took him a while to get it back.
You mentioned the go-ahead double in last night's game. He had an RBI single and a run scored in today's game in the third, and he bats with Davis at third, 2 out. And shoots one into right center field. Cedeno back, won't get it. Up against the wall. Brocious delivers. 5-3 Yankees in the fourth.
We saw Bernie Williams with a runner on at first, Bobby Bonilla, earlier in the game, faking it, and you could understand it. This ball shoots to the gap, and there is nobody that Roger Cedeno is trying to fool because there's a runner on at third base with 2 outs. So who are you trying to fool with this fake?
Runner's going no matter what.
Right.
And that runner was Chili Davis, who scored. You remember the bloop double, the Sun-aided double by Davis. Handshakes nonetheless as the Yankees lead by 2 in the fourth. Runner at second now, 2 out for Knobloch. And he takes a strike. So Masato Yoshi coming off a rough start. His last time out, 10-1 loss at home against Arizona on Sunday, in which he lasted only 2 2/3 innings, is fighting to make it through 4 innings here today. The outs are trying to frame that pitch. 1 ball, 1 strike.
With the problems that Bobby Valentine's starters have been having, it's almost like you think Bobby is thinking, if only I could start my relievers, I'd be all right. Relief has been super. The starters have been terrible.
Now blocked to the shortstop, Ordonez. Inning is over. Masato Yoshi has allowed 12 earned runs in his last 12 innings pitched. Tino Martinez got one here with his swing. He hits number 8 on the year. The Yankees get another and lead by 2 after 4. First pitch of the 5th inning is in for a strike from Hernandez to Edgardo Alfonzo. The 2, 3, and 4 hitters now for the Mets as they trail by 2. Led by 3 after 2.5 innings. Now trail by a couple after 4. 1 ball, 1 strike from El Duque. John Olerud will follow, and then Mike Piazza. Those are the names attached to the 2, 3, and 4 hitters for the Mets. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Who can forget the stories of the World Series back in 1996 when Frank Torre had open heart surgery, the brother of Joe Torre, and then Joe's prostate cancer this year. He missed the first 7 weeks of the Yankee season.
Alfonso spoils a good pitch.
Everybody talking about Joe Torre and how he had never won anything when he came to the New York Yankees. All that experience as a manager of the Mets, as a manager of the Atlanta Braves and the St. Louis Cardinals, all that experience as a broadcaster and in the game, he was like a fine bottle of wine whose cork was ready to be popped.
There's a pop-up into shallow right. Off the bat of Alfonso into the glove of Paul O'Neill. And let's take you back to Kurt Menefee with Sister Marguerite.
Well, Joe, we got Sister Marguerite with us, and you got a lot of Mets fans. You're here on a church outing. Is it taking divine intervention to get you through this day?
I think it's going to end up that way. Yes, we have a lot of Mets fans. We have a lot of Yankee fans, too. It's our Nativity Youth Club. Monsignor Thalen, my pastor's here with me, Sister Imelda, the parents and the youngsters, high school youngsters, who are members of our youth club at Nativity.
So this is kind of an all New York outing for you. You got the Mets fans together with the Yankee fans coming out to watch Brother Joe.
You got it. You got it. Some of them are behind me trying to let me hold the flag for the Mets, but I won't do it. I won't do it. My brother Joe would say, "Sis, are you losing it? What's going on?"
Well, Joe and Tim, it sounds like she's never going to convert over to the other side of the Mets.
Thank you, Kurt. Here's a shot the opposite way off the bat of Olerud. He's trying for the double and will make it. A 1-out sliding double by John Olerud here in the 5th inning. She used to hold that Mets flag when Brother Joe was playing and managing the Mets in the late 70s, early 80s.
Managing from 77 through 81. The classic Olerud stroke from line to line with John Olerud.
And With that double, the tying run walks in. Mike Piazza, runner at second, one out. 5-3 Yankees, fifth inning. Piazza singled to help set up the RBI sac fly by Bobby Bonilla in the third inning, and he struck out. Allroot at second with one down, and Piazza, like a swinging bunt, rolls it foul.
Joe, you talked about Joe Torre as the Mets manager. He dressed funny in those days.
Everybody dressed like that.
They did.
That's easy for you to say. Where's some 70s pictures of you?
Well, I dress funny, too.
And there are the numbers from 1977 and 1981. A player manager for the New York Mets, Joe Torre.
Those were the days of platform shoes and leisure suits.
And now roll the clock forward. That style is back in some circles, and Joe Torre is the other ballpark here in New York.
I bet the Nehru suits aren't back in style.
Runner at second, one out. The 0-1 pitch to Piazza. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Elephant ear pants with the flares from the knees to the shoes. Sideburns. Chops.
Here's a guy with some long sideburns and some different looking socks at the end of his legs as he tries for something to break up this 7-game losing streak for the Mets. We talked about it at the start. It's worth bringing back up. The Mets came in here having lost 6 in a row. They could very well walk out of here having lost 9 in a row. Bobby Valentine starting to come under fire, not only from outside sources but from his own players. There's a look at the effort by Piazza and the legs of El Duque. The 1-2 pitch. Two gone as Piazza strikes out. Third strikeout for El Duque.
And he's gotten one, or Mike Piazza twice actually. The first time up on an inside fastball, and then the sweeping breaking ball. He has been influenced by David Cone of the Yankees with this particular pitch. The ball down and away. Almost every hitter is weak on that pitch, but Piazza will chase with 2 strikes, and he chased then. You could see that red dot right there. Almost you could put that with every hitter who's weak on that particular pitch, but great location by Hernandez.
And now it takes a 2-out hit for the Mets from Bobby Bonilla, who has singled and scored and driven in a run with a sac fly to right, a ball that he just got under and nearly rode out of here. He's hit 4, his average at 163. Bonilla waits for that pitch. It misses. 2-0. Allroot a 1-out double. Piazza struck out for the 2nd out. And a 2-ball, no strike count on Bonilla. And Hernandez pitching carefully to Bonilla.
Not a pitch around situation, because Robin Ventura, if Bonilla gets on and if Ventura connects, the Mets retake the lead.
Does he swing on 3-0? He does, and he pops it foul. Out of play for strike 1. 3-1. Let's go back to sounds of the game and Bobby Valentine.
The big ones left. Relax and get them. Come on.
Got the big ones left, he said, figuring Piazza probably has a couple of more at bats before the end of the day. Allroot at second, 2 out. The 3-1 to Bonilla. That'll put 2 on with 2 out for Ventura. Second walk of the day issued by Hernandez. And now Robin Ventura bats representing the go-ahead run at the plate.
So if you're Ventura, what do you look for right now off Orlando Hernandez? He hit the fastball out away from him for a double off the left center field wall and a check swing on the breaking ball. So if I'm Ventura, I look for the breaking ball early in the count.
There's one high for ball one. Ventura came in at 268. He's doubled and scored today. Crowd quiet now as the Mets try to do something about this 2-run deficit in the 5th inning. That's a strike, according to Darrell Cousins, and the count 1-1 strike. Talk about the speed on the bases. John Olerud and Bobby Bonilla. It would take a home run to score them both. They are the tying runs with 2 out. Ventura pops it up left side. That ball will get out of play for strike 2.
There's that breaking ball again. Robin Ventura with that real open stance, and when hitters do that, they say that they can see the pitch better with 2 eyes, but they have so much to do with the lower part of the body. You see how he swings that right foot around to prepare to hit. It's under that one. Very few advantages, in my view, of an open stance.
Crowd comes alive in the 1-2 pitch to Ventura. 2 balls, 2 strikes. They talk about the Mets' problems. As you look at Ventura in that open stance as Hernandez missed outside, they talk about the Mets' problems with getting hits with runners in scoring position, driving in runs. This is a base-to-base team a lot of the time with a lack of speed, as Ventura grounds to second for Knobloch. Guides it over to first, and the inning is over. A 1-out double by Olerud, a 2-out walk to Bonilla. Hernandez gets around it. The Yankees lead by 2 halfway through this one on a Saturday afternoon.
Fox Saturday Baseball is brought to you by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, if you're not asking for it, you're asking for it. By Pepsi, the thrill of Star Wars Episode 1 and the joy of cola. By MasterCard. MasterCard, proud sponsor of Major League Baseball and fan of the great American pastime. And by Bud Light, for the great taste that won't fill you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light.
Might be your best way to get here. To get in and out of the Bronx and Yankee Stadium. Ride the train. Bottom of the 5th inning on a gorgeous baseball afternoon here in the Bronx. Yankees lead by 2, and they will send in Jeter, O'Neill, and Williams. And now you start to wonder about that streak of 56 consecutive games of reaching base. He's 0 for 1 with a sacrifice fly. Strike 1. Most consecutive games reaching base. These are unofficial statistics. And in the decade of the 90s, the longest streak belongs to Mark McGwire. Over the last 25 years, you're looking at the best. McGwire, Clark, Boggs, Thomas, Jeter. Jeter trying to inch his way up that list. Fights it off and drops it foul. Nearly 57, as that was inches foul down the right field line.
57 missed by inches. 58 years ago, Joe DiMaggio would have been at the top of the list. He was on base 74 games in a row. The 56-game hitting streak. Then he walked in game 57. He went on remarkably to hit in another 16. Walked in game 74 and did not reach base in game 75. Unveiled on April 25th, the Yankee Clipper who passed away this spring. What a memorable day that was. Paul Simon singing "Where Have You Gone, Joe DiMaggio."
Jeter fouls it out of play. You saw the shot of Whitey Ford, Bill Rizzuto, Yogi Berra, who was here at the park last night.
Nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Written by Paul Simon, The Graduate, in 1968, I believe, 67 or 8.
A look out at Monument Park beyond the wall and left center field at Yankee Stadium. The 0-2 pitch misses from Yoshi, 1-2. O'Neill and Bernie Williams will follow Jeter to the plate in the 5th inning. Yankees batting and leading by 2. Trying to take the first 2 games of this weekend 3-game set. A look from catcher Cam on that drive foul, backing out of play. Well, now you get a chance, Tim, to see Derek Jeter day after day after day after the last couple of years, seeing him sporadically on the weekends and then seemingly throughout the postseason. And I would imagine you're more impressed now than you were before.
His improvement from this year since last year, eye-opening.
Spoils that pitch. It's still 1-2.
Always one of the best 2-strike hitters in the game. He's increased his power output by working on that top hand in spring training. Absolutely unflappable. One of the more mature young men I have ever met and seen perform.
And what a classic number 2 hitter. Where's number 2? Hits second, and he shoots one into right field. 57 consecutive games. Jeter has reached base. He's going to try for the double and make it. He's there with nobody out. With that stroke of Derek Jeter going the opposite way and doing it with a little power behind it.
This ball isn't punched the other way. It's rocketed the other way. Talked about that top hand. A hitter can actually use that top hand when he goes the other way. Saw it right then. Through the zone with authority.
57 consecutive games and counting, reaching base for Derek Jeter. That double not only extends the streak, but ends the day for Masato Yoshi.
This is his last hitter, I think. This is his last hitter.
Prophetic words on the part of Joe Torre as Jeter's double spells the end of the day for Masato Yoshi. And the reason is very obvious as to why this would be a time for a pitching change as Watson comes in to face Paul O'Neill. Runner at second, nobody out. O'Neill pops it up. Left side, playable for Ventura. One down and a big out on one pitch from Alan Watson. O'Neill does not advance the runner. That'll be cause for frustration from one of the game's most intense players, Paul O'Neill. Masato Yoshi now just watching as he can't get through 5 innings today. This belongs to New York native Alan Watson.
Yeah, and once again, that was not a disparaging remark about Masato Yoshi from Joe Torre. It was because Alan Watson, the left-hander, was coming in to face Paul O'Neill.
Let's listen in Cleveland. Chip Carey is standing by. Sammy Sosa must be coming up.
Okay, Joe and Tim, thank you very much. Chip Carey, Jeff Torborg from Jacobs Field in Cleveland, where the Chicago Cubs are threatening to take the first 2 games of this 3-game weekend series. Sammy Sosa stands in with Mickey Morandini at first and nobody out in the 7th inning. Sosa today has singled. He's driven home a run. He's scored. He's walked. He's also struck out. The Cleveland Indians, the only team that Sammy Sosa has faced in the big leagues against which he has not home run. So a chance for that against his former teammate Dave Stevens. And a strike call over the outside corner. Sosa, the National League home run leader with 19. And 45 runs driven in. He had a splendid month of May, hitting 13 home runs for the Chicago Cubs. The 0-1. Over the outside corner, a beautiful pitch. 0-2.
Well, Chip, we talked so much about how Sammy has progressed as a hitter the longer he stayed in the big leagues, and last year he really put his game together, obviously, with 66 home runs. But to take a look at him, he does some little things that are interesting. If you look at his right hand, his top hand on the bat, his index finger is not even on the bat. It's out straight. A lot of hitters will do that, especially power hitters, because they feel that it loosens the top hand up and makes their hands quicker. But if we can take a shot of it, you'll see the right index finger sticking out.
The 0-2. Good cut, foul back.
And we talked about his changing of his hands. Major league hitters change their hands, change their stance. Well, Sammy has gone to the wide stance where he steps back. Now see the index finger. In fact, the index finger on both hands. You can see that they are just sticking out off the bat. What it does is it loosens your hands up, and now the bat flies through your hands when you go to swing.
0-2 again to Sosa. Instead to first.
But I really believe, watching him last year, that wide stance where he got that little trick from Jeff Pentland where he would bring his left foot back, touch the ground, and then stride forward, kept him back, made him more selective, and it kept him back where he just was that much better hitter.
And boy, did he ever unload last year. Again, the 0-2, and again, they throw to first. Sosa had a major league record month of June last year, hit 20 home runs.
A little earlier start this year. What do you have? 13 in May.
13 in May and already 2 this month. And it's only the 4th of June. The 0-2 struck him out. That's the place you can get Sosa. He loves the ball down. That one, however, under his hands. And he is.
So that's it for Sosa in that at bat. He sticks with 19 home runs after an intentional pass to Bernie Williams. Here comes the 2-2 pitch with 2 on 1 out to Tino Martinez. And Watson was able to get that past him for the strikeout. Good work by Alan Watson. He's come in to get O'Neill on a pop-up. The intentional walk to Williams. He strikes out Tino Martinez, who is now 2 out of 3 with a home run, to bring in Chili Davis. A look at today's General Motors game summary. Jeter just extended that streak in the bottom of this 5th inning, a leadoff double. Tino Martinez has a home run, now 2 out of 3. Brocious 2 for 2 at the bottom of the Yankee lineup. And the Mets 1 out of 7 with runners in scoring position. That's nothing new for the New York Mets.
The Mets, with nobody on base or a runner on at first, have a 284 average with runners in scoring position, a 247 average coming into this game. 3rd worst in the National League.
The numbers for Alan Watson: a record of 2-2 in 12 games. He was in the starting rotation, got hit in the foot in the series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Back in the bullpen as he brings it low and away to the right-handed hitting now, Chili Davis, who turns around and bats right-handed for the first time this afternoon. 2 on, 2 out. Chili Davis has bounced into a double play, doubled and scored. Late swing, 1 ball, 1 strike.
One of the reasons for the success of Alan Watson, what success he enjoys, is that very deliberate, unusual delivery. Taking the ball out of the glove, the hesitation. Got to be very difficult to pick him up.
Former #1 draft pick of the St. Louis Cardinals. That delivery to the plate is something new. The 1-1 delivery. A little hesitation and a strike over the outside corner. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Pitchers of his ilk are referred to as hookers. A guy like Rick Sutcliffe of the Chicago Cubs used to hook the ball behind his back. And you can see how Alan Watson, it's a form of hooking the ball behind your back. A lot of guys work on getting out of that habit. Alan Watson worked on getting in it.
Little flare into center is going to fall in for a hit. Jeter will score without a play. 2 out RBIs today for the Yankees, and they lead by 3.
One of Joe Torre's philosophies as a hitter was to, with 2 strikes, make the pitcher jam you. That's what Chili Davis did, and loops one over the head of Ordonez as Jeter scores. The reason you do that is you're protecting the outside part of the plate. You can't protect both ways. That ball in off the plate. Chili fights it off for another run for the Yankees.
Joe Torre, who worked that philosophy into an MVP season for the Cardinals back in 1971. Looking out at 2 on, 2 out. Jorge Posada at the plate. Switch hitting catcher comes up late, strike 1. Posada this afternoon is 0 for 2. He's grounded out twice. Yankees got a 2-out RBI double from Brocious in the 4th. They get a 2-out RBI single from Chili Davis here in the 5th, and now lead by 3. Runners on at first and second, 2 down, and strike 2 on Posada. This year has been more or less a blip on the radar screen, or a little dive down on the graph, the progress for Jorge Posada. He has progressively been getting better with the help of Joe Girardi, the other catcher with the Yankees in this season. He comes in hitting only .205, and defensively he has really struggled.
7 pass balls for Posada this year.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
And some of the wild pitches that the Yankee pitchers have thrown are balls that Posada should have at least kept in front of him. Now keep in mind, Posada signed as a shortstop, converted to the catching position back in '92. Didn't grow up with the catcher's mentality. And that's very important when it comes to putting down signs. Because if you go through the minor leagues with that catcher mentality, then you know how pitchers think. There's so much more to the position than just the mechanics of throwing, blocking the ball in the dirt, putting down fingers. One of the very, very important things. And Posada was learning.
And he's fortunate that the Yankees are so good that they can ride that out.
Great point.
And let him figure his way behind the plate. They don't have to worry about all those pass balls. They don't have to worry about him hitting .205. He has the luxury of learning here at the major league level and of stumbling right now, but having the chance to right himself.
Yep.
Posada had 7 pass balls in all of 1998. A 1-2 pitch. 2 balls, 2 strikes from Watson. Alan Watson, who grew up here in New York, really favored the game of basketball over baseball as he grew up. He was a top high school basketball player while he was in this city, and now pitching with the Mets. Signing on as a free agent with the Angels, letting him go after last season. The 2-2 to Posada. Popped up into shallow right. Long run for Cedeno. Near the line. Nice play, and the inning comes to a close. But the Yankees come up with 1 more. 1 run in the 5th inning on 2 hits and an intentional walk. Yankees have stranded 4 and lead by 3. Well, Orlando Hernandez goes back to work in the 6th inning, and we've talked really the last couple of years with the defections of some of the Cuban baseball players coming to the major leagues, and Orlando Hernandez, one of the last to come over lately, as he gives that high leg kick and brings it to the plate. And we've talked about the importance of the game of baseball in Cuba and how the development of the game of baseball has mirrored its development here in the United States, as he brings in a big overhand slow breaking ball for a 1 ball 1 strike count. There's a great new book out written by Roberto Gonzalez Echeverria called The Pride of Havana, which is a history of Cuban baseball. And if you're just a fan of baseball, you ought to check out the book, because Cuban baseball is very much a part of the development of the game that we know today. 2 balls and a strike on Brian McRae leading off. Ordonez will follow, and then Cedeno, bottom 3 in the lineup, as McRae takes a strike. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
How about that? A 1-0 breaking ball for a strike, a 2-1 breaking ball for a strike, and El Duque has a 3-run lead.
It's 6-3 Yankees, 6th inning. 2 balls, 2 strikes on McRae. McRae has driven in a run with an RBI ground out, bounced out to second. And the 2-2. Floats in there high. 3 balls, 2 strikes.
Joe, talking about baseball in Cuba, the 2 starters today, Yoshi, as you look at Ray Ordonez, Yoshi and Hernandez, 2 of 82 foreign-born pitchers in the major leagues.
And McRae is gone to start the 6th inning. A Budweiser game break. Let's go back to Keith Olbermann in the Fox Network Center.
Joe, middle of the 7th now at Jacobs Field. The Cubs continue to pile it on the Indians. Henry Rodriguez RBI single, making it 7-4 now. Paul Assenmacher. We'll go back to you, Joe. Say hi to Spike, Sister Marguerite, and my mother for me.
Okay. They're sitting together now. Spike, Sister Marguerite, this is Mrs. Olbermann. 1 out, nobody on. And a strike over the inside corner from El Duque. And the numbers for Hernandez. Echevarria, by the way, is a Sterling Professor of Hispanic and Comparative Literature at Yale. And one thing that he brings up is interesting in the context of 1999 as the strike is poured in there 0-2. It was not some great seismic event that a team from Cuba beat a Major League Baseball team. It has happened in the past. In fact, back in 1908, the Reds went down there and lost. A ball and 2 strikes on Ray Ordonez, so 2 Cuban-born players facing off against one another. In 1937, the New York Giants, off 2 consecutive National League pennants, went down there. Carl Hubble on the mound and played to a 1-1 tie, so there's some history there. And it's an interesting read. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out, nobody on. Ball 3. Crowd thought it was strike 3, and it's a full count.
Was it outside? Good call.
Camera angle umpires love to hate. 3 balls, 2 strikes. And Ordonez pops it up to the right side for Tino Martinez. Gives it a look, but it's out of play. Still 3-2. On deck, the number 9 hitter Cedeno, who's reached base twice and has been running all over the place once he's reached base. He's stolen 2 and been running 2 other times as Ricky Henderson made the final out of an inning. Ordonez waiting for the 3-2 pitch. Fouls that one out of play. Ray Ordonez has had a tough time, despite his low career Major League average, of laying off borderline pitches. He is not as selective as the Mets would like him to be. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out, nobody on. And he pops this one into left center field. Pretty well hit. Williams going back to pull it in, 2 down. Well, this Tuesday, don't forget, it's game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals as Dominic Hasek and the surprising Buffalo Sabres faced off against Mike Modano, Brett Hall, and the Dallas Stars. The war for the Stanley Cup begins. Don't miss game 1 live this Tuesday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox. Dallas winning in that decisive game 7 last night, winning and beating Colorado, and behind the great goaltending of Eddie Belfour, moved to the finals. That addition of Brett Hall for this season has helped the team as they get to the finals under Ken Hitchcock, trying to upset or knock off the surprising Buffalo Sabres. 2 out, nobody on. 0-1 the count on Cedeno. Cedeno pops it into right field. Well hit. O'Neill back on the track, has room and makes the catch to end the inning. Mets go in order in the 6th inning. Bottom of the 6th. Bottom of the order coming up for the Yankees, who lead by 3.
Fox Saturday Baseball is brought to you by the people inspired to build vehicles for your mind and heart. Nissan. Driven.
A look at one of the monuments out in Monument Park. George Herman Ruth, who really got this Yankee Stadium history underway. And if you haven't seen, this is my last literary selection for the afternoon. If you haven't seen the latest issue of Sports Illustrated, great history of Yankee Yankee Stadium detailed in there. Here's a ground ball to the right side. Watson's going to have to hurry, and he gets there, beating Tarasco to the plate, put out 3-1. Beat him to the bag for the first out. The number 9 hitter, Scott Brocious, will walk in. Other scores start to roll in. Bottom of the 7th inning with the Cubs up by 3 over Cleveland. See, I told you, Tim. Ryan would be all over Berlin today. 1 out, nobody on. 3:35 on the scoreboard clock here at Yankee Stadium. And the number 9 hitter, Brocious, 2 for 2, is at the plate.
That is a different league, I hope. Otherwise, the road trips would be horrible.
It would be good once you got there.
Chicago to Frankfurt, what is it, about 13 hours, 12 hours or such?
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Rhine-Main Air Force Base over there.
2 balls, no strikes. Some of the baseball scores have looked a lot like that football score. And I think there are a number of reasons why. I know you still don't think the baseball is juiced.
Well, I'll tell you. Now, wait a minute. You might.
Brocious takes a strike, 2-1.
You are causing me to waver. I'm still not firmly convinced that the baseball is too firm. However, I am leaning the other way, and I do have the right to change my mind, do I not?
Absolutely. Okay. Into right field, 2 balls, 2 strikes, and a fly out to right to take care of the at-bat for Brocious. 2 out. Well, Fox is bringing you this season's All-Star game from Fenway Park in Boston. What is the distance from Yankee Stadium to Fenway? You can record your answer online at foxsports.com. All correct answers are eligible to win a new Nissan truck. The winner of the drawing will be announced at the All-Star game. So there you go. There's the question. What is the distance? I guess we'll do it in miles. Is that how we're doing this?
It's closer than from Chicago to Frankfurt. I'll guarantee you that.
Well, that we know. There you go. People are already lined up trying to get the right measurement and distance between Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park.
That reminded me, back in 1976, the bicentennial, Bill Giles, who was then the business manager of the Phillies, had a Paul Revere look-alike ride a horse from Boston to Philadelphia to deliver the first pitch.
That's down into the left field corner, and Knobloch will have an easy double as Henderson digs it out. Knobloch is on for the 2nd time today.
So that rider could tell you the distance by horseback. I mean, from Boston to Philadelphia, but not Boston to New York.
So we haven't even determined what gate you have to get to at Fenway Park. I mean, that could be a few extra paces. If you want to be eligible for the truck, there's the first part of your journey. Now cue the blimp in Boston. We don't have a blimp in Boston. It's
over Yankee Stadium now.
There you go, north. And as you look, that is the distance. That is the question. I don't know about construction on the highway, renovations on the highway. It's way, way over there. An intentional pass being handed out to Derek Jeter. This will be ball 3 from Alan Watson after the double by Knobloch. And it's going to be up to the left-handed hitting O'Neill, who fouled out with Jeter at second and nobody out back in the 5th inning when Watson was first brought in. We've been showing you the views from the blimp. The CDW.com blimp tour is making its television debut today at Yankee Stadium.
That, by the way, is the 2nd time in less than 24 hours that the number 2 hitter has been walked intentionally to get to the number 3 hitter. How often do you see that?
Well, that's rare. That is rare, and that'll tell you how good Derek Jeter is going right now for O'Neill, who has been one of the most consistent American leaguers over the past 4 or 5 years. Struggling right now at the plate, batting with 2 on, 2 out, taking a pitch in the dirt from Watson, ball 1. Paul O'Neill is 0 for 3, does have an RBI ground out. He's driven in 32 runs this season. One of the main differences between the Yankees this year and last year The slugging percentage, the production of the big bats in this lineup with O'Neill, Williams, Tino Martinez, not doing what they did a year ago to this point. 2 on, 2 out, the 1-0 pitch. Popped up into center, should end the inning. McRae there. Now he can't see it, but he recovers to end the 6th inning. We'll be back for the 7th after these words from your local Fox station. 6-3 Yankees. Top of the order for the Mets, Ricky Henderson, Edgardo Alfonzo, and John Olerud against Hernandez. 7th inning, and the Yankees lead by 3. There is help if needed in this 7th inning for the Yankees out in their bullpen.
Mike Stanton, the left-hander, Ramiro Mendoza, the right-hander. Keep in mind that neither the Mets nor the Yankees have a complete game this year.
Ricky Henderson 0 for 3 as he takes a breaking ball low and away for ball 1.
To give you an idea of how things have changed, Bob Gibson in 34 starts in 1968 had 28 complete games. Juan Marichal, the winner of 26 games in 1968, had 30 complete games.
Soon thereafter, the pitching mound was lowered.
The next year, 1969.
2 balls, no strikes on Henderson, trying to get something started. He's very patient. He's up on the count 3-0. He'll be taking here on 3-0, and he takes a strike. 3 balls and a strike. Ball 4 puts the leadoff man on here in the 7th inning for the Mets. We already mentioned that Ricky Henderson played here with the New York Yankees. He did it between 1985 and parts of 1989. When you put a bigger than life athlete in the city of New York, you're going to get some sparks, and that was certainly the case with Ricky Henderson.
1,308 stolen bases. Lou Brock with 938 stolen bases. So Ricky Henderson, as we speak, 370 stolen bases ahead of his nearest competitor, who's no longer a competitor, but what a great competitor. Speaking of competitors, Lou Brock, the great Hall of Famer.
1 on, nobody out for Alfonzo, who takes a strike. Ricky Henderson did not endear himself to Cardinal fans or Lou Brock fans when on the day he broke Lou Brock's record, who kept traveling around with the A's and would go from city to city to be there.
Yeah.
With Lou standing there, Ricky said, "Today I could say I am the greatest of all time." And he was. He still is. And he is still going. Well, he is in such tremendous shape. I mean, the shape that he has kept that body in allows him to stay at the top of this lineup and still steal bases. Not as fast as he once was, but he can still steal bases. No time granted. Ball 1, low and away, makes the count 1 ball, 1 strike on Edgardo Alfonzo.
That's right. Home plate umpire Darrell Cousins saying you called time too late. And fortunately for Alfonzo, the ball was low and out of the strike zone.
Scoreboard still has 0-1. I believe it's 1 ball, 1 strike. Darrell Cousins has not corrected the scoreboard, however. Nonetheless, the next pitch, runner going, and a base hit into right center field. Ricky Henderson will head to third, and it's 1st and 3rd with nobody out as Henderson starts it. The 40-year-old leadoff hitter gets a walk, and Alfonzo helps the Mets with a hit to right center.
That is probably going to be all for Orlando Hernandez. When you're 3 runs down in the late innings, you don't normally hit and run. What I think happened was that Henderson ran, and Alfonzo got the hit to right field. Now, it looks like a hit and run, but I do not think it was, because normally you don't do that when you're 3 runs down, but it was executed beautifully. And a great piece of hitting by Alfonzo.
Still no complete games for either side, either the Yankees or Mets. Hernandez gone in the 7th to a big ovation at Yankee Stadium.
Edgardo Alfonso with a hit to the right side. Henderson going all the way around to third. We didn't think that Bobby Valentine would hit and run in this situation. He may have put it on. What do you think after this soundbite?
Hate to put on a hit and run here and waste an out when we could steal it, you know?
Yeah, what do you think?
Sounded like he wanted to steal it.
Yeah, didn't it?
Yeah. And Henderson was off and moving on the hit to right center by Alfonso. Gone is Orlando Hernandez, and into the game is a left-hander, Mike Stanton. Record of 1-2, has made one start this year. And he deals with John Olerud, representing the tying run at the plate here in the 7th. The .298 hitter against left-handed pitching is Olerud. First and third, nobody out. And a strike over the outside corner from Stanton. We talked at the top of the day, and now Jorge Posada gives signs to the fielders out behind Mike Stanton with his first and third nobody out situation. Before it's all over in 1999, the Yankees are going to miss and somehow try to fill the void left by Graham Lloyd.
Absolutely.
Now a Toronto Blue Jay. A look to first, and Alfonso gets back in plenty of time.
Last checking, as a matter of fact, Graham Lloyd with 3 saves for the Blue Jays. Mike Stanton probably will be pitching to only Olerud because Ramiro Mendoza continues to throw, and with Piazza on deck, he'll probably come in to face Mike.
Runners at the corners, nobody out, and Olerud fouls away strike number 2. The big guy, Piazza, waits on deck. We talk so often about save situations. Well, this game might very well be saved here in the 7th inning. 2 on, nobody out. Olerud trying to get that big hit for the Mets, and boy, do they need it. Losers of 7 in a row. Breaking ball is low, a ball and 2 strikes.
We talked about Jeter going to right field and how proficient he is, as you see Ramiro Mendoza warming with 2 strikes. Well, Olerud just as proficient in going to left field with 2 strikes the other way.
Ball and 2 strikes. Olerud fouls it away. Just to underline it again, you're the Mets. You've lost 7 in a row. You're down here 6-3 in the 7th inning. You have an opportunity in the late innings against this Yankee team, and you face the prospect of losing the first 2 games of this series, facing Roger Clemens tomorrow night with a struggling Al Leiter on the mound. This is an opportunity the Mets do not want to waste. Runners at the corners, nobody out, and Olerud spoiling some pretty tough pitches. There's Al Leiter. Signed a contract extension. Free agent in the offseason. They quickly locked him back into the Mets rotation, and he has had a rough start. The 1-2 to Olerud. Got it. 1 away. And a big strikeout for Stanton.
One man faced, 1 strikeout.
Stanton, his work is finished for the day. With Piazza coming up, Mendoza coming out of the pen for the Yankees. A look at Mike Piazza, and it'll be Piazza against Mendoza, with Mike representing the tying run here in the 7th.
What did Mike do the first 3 times up against Orlando Hernandez? First inning, fastball up and in, strikeout. With Olerud running in the 3rd, a single to right center. 5th inning, Olerud on at 2nd, breaking ball low and away. So Piazza will receive a different look from Ramiro Mendoza. He does not drop down. As a matter of fact, it's imperative that Mendoza stay on top of his sinker. What happens with Ramiro told us by Mel Stottlemyre, he drops his hand down. And when he drops his hand down, he has a tendency to push the ball, and the ball tails in the strike zone and doesn't sink. So you folks at home can watch for that from our center field camera. If you see the ball laying in the strike zone, those are the pitches that Piazza murders. But if it goes down, he's got one of the best sinkers in the game.
Look at scores from around Major League Baseball. At least that Cubs game, they still lead by 3 late in the game in Cleveland. NFL Europe scores as Henderson walks back to third. Runner at first is Alfonso. A strikeout by Olerud. Stanton is gone, and now Mendoza. You remember our Fox Sounds of the game when Bobby Valentine patted Piazza on the backside and said, "You got 2 big ones left. Come on, stay in there." And here is his most important at-bat of the afternoon. A chance for Piazza. First and third, 1 out. And a strike over the inside corner, and Piazza didn't like that call.
The sinker from center field. Watch the ball go down. In a Yankee perfect world, a double play ball. He throws a lot of ground balls, about 2-to-1 to fly ball outs.
Who leads the National League into rounding into double plays? The man at the plate, Piazza, who's now set up at 0-2.
Piazza swinging over that sinker.
Runners at the corners, 1 out. Mets trail by 3 here in the 7th. 2 out.
Good morning. Good afternoon. And good night, says Mendoza. All sinkers.
And now with first and third, 2 out, who does this Met rally and its success rest on? Bobby Bonilla. He's had a nice day at the plate. Takes a ball. Bonilla walked his last time, hit a sacrifice fly in the third, and singled and scored in the second. He has been able to put everything aside. Have really 3 good at-bats in this game. Runners at the corners, 2 down. Out in front is Bonilla. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I do not think Mendoza will come inside to Bonilla in this sequence. Bobby Bonilla, a lethal down and in hitter, represents a tying run. Mendoza will probably stay away. You make a mistake away, it's a 6-4 ball game. If you make a mistake to Bonilla inside, it's a tie game, or could be with the short porch here at Yankee Stadium.
2 balls and a strike. Bonilla could not hold up. He went around 2-2. Another look at strike 2 on Bonilla as this crowd comes alive at Yankee Stadium, wanting the top of the 7th to end right now. An early jump on the 7th inning stretch for those who root for the Yankees. The Mets have lost 7 straight. They lose a golden opportunity in the 7th with the heart of the order at the plate. Welcome back to Yankee Stadium. Who has our A&W fan cam zeroed in on today? Member of the royal family, I think.
A regal figure indeed.
That is Prince Charles' little-known brother, Zeppo, who is here at the ballpark today. King of the Bronx. How about that? That's enough of him. Bottom of the 7th inning. Bernie Williams first up. Alan Watson has worked well out of the bullpen for the Mets and delivers ball 1 low.
Got to be a long game for that dude to come back on camera, right?
Yes. It's an old play-by-play announcer down there.
Yep. Yep.
1 ball, no strikes. Good pitch from Watson. 1-1 to Bernie Williams. Williams has walked, singled, been out stealing, and been intentionally passed. Tino Martinez followed that intentional walk with a strikeout back in the 5th. Hard hit, backhanded stab Ventura. So good over there. Long throw again. Robin Ventura, who has made only 3 errors all season, has mixed right into this infield for the Mets, and I know you think it's one of, if not the best defensive infields in the game.
Absolutely. Even with Alfonso moving to second, fine play by a guy who won the Gold Glove in the American League last year, Robin Ventura.
Such a vital part of this infield and the defensive success is the guy who caught that throw, Olrud. That play doesn't point it out, but there have been so many times when Ordonez will make some crazy play, get it over to first, bounce it over there, and who's over there to dig it out? Olrud, who might not be Keith Hernandez for the Mets over at first base, but he is a good target for these New York Met infielders. 0-2 on Martinez. .6-3 Yankees as they bat here in the bottom of the 7th. Tino Martinez 2 out of 3 today. That one got away from Watson.
What was that? That was just one of those balls that was, as Bob Uecker would say, just a little bit high. Air ball.
Here's the 1-2 from Watson. The breaking ball is fouled back. Tino Martinez clubbed one into the upper deck back in the 4th inning, leading off to put the Yankees on top. They've added to that lead with another run in the 4th inning and one in the 5th. Driven in by Chili Davis. The 1-2 to Martinez. Popped up. Foul territory. Piazza. 2 down. CDW Computer Center, celebrating their 15th anniversary, is proud to provide these magnificent live shots over Yankee Stadium here in the Bronx. They make their television debut today, and so far so good.
Absolutely gorgeous day. Arabu up and throwing, probably throwing between starts. No intention of going in the game, one would not think, being the 5th starter. Low humidity today in the Bronx. What a gorgeous day for baseball.
2 out bases empty for Chili Davis. 2 out of 3. Davis has bounced into a double play, doubled and scored, and driven in a run with a 2-out RBI single in the 5th. Alan Watson is certainly giving these Mets what they need out of their bullpen. He did give up that hit to Chili Davis in the 5th. Got around a 2-out double by Knobloch in the 6th. Posada waits to bat next, either here in the 7th or leading off the bottom of the 8th. 6-3 Yankees, 7th inning. Davis swung and missed. Strike 2.
Mike Piazza, remember, is wearing catcher cam, and after that foul ball that he caught from Tino Martinez, rather menacing sight right there.
It is.
Bending over to put on catcher cam.
Surreal. 2 balls and a strike, 2 out, nobody on, and Davis takes ball 3, 3-1. Base is empty with 2 out. Chili Davis pops it up off the end of the bat. Ordonez has to go a long way out there, and he makes the play to end the inning. Yankees go in order for just the 2nd time all day. We've played 7. Yankees trying to take the first 2 of this set, lead by 3. First pitch is a ball up and into Robin Ventura. We're underway in the 8th inning with the Yankees leading by 3. A chopper to the left side, picked up by Jeter. Ventura's gone, one away in the 8th inning for the Mets. Joe Buck and Tim McCarver with you. This is our little perch here at Yankee Stadium. And we've talked about it a couple of times, but here are the Mets. They are, what, 5 outs away from losing 8 in a row. And if they do lose 8 in a row, they will have blown 8 different leads during that streak, which is atypical of a team with a good bullpen. That includes maybe 2-3 times in one particular game, but they've had their chances, and Bobby Valentine pacing in that dugout with good reason.
And as you so appropriately put it, the prospects of facing Roger Clemens tomorrow night. If they lose the next 2 games, the Vice Titans next week.
Brian McRae, one of the 2 put on irrevocable waivers by the New York Mets, allegedly. Bobby Valentine was asked about that. He said, I don't know. I know nothing about that. Which is difficult.
Odd.
That's difficult to believe.
How odd is that? The general manager and the manager? No communication there?
He said, go talk to Steve Phillips.
How can Bobby Valentine not know that Bobby Bonilla and Brian McRae were put on irrevocable waivers?
Here's a fly ball to center off the bat of McRae. 2 up, 2 down. You know, look, Bobby Valentine, by his own admission, he'd be the first guy to tell you, has always been a controversial figure.
True.
Trouble has seemed to follow him around, and success has followed him around. I mentioned that he hasn't had a team of his finish first in a division in 14 seasons as a manager, but you've got to give this guy credit.
Absolutely.
For helping to milk as much out of this Mets team the last couple of years and overachieve as they have the last couple of years. But now as things start to roll downward for these Mets, they are on the verge of losing their 8th consecutive game. We talked about it earlier. Reports are that Bob Apodaca, as Matt Franco pinch hits here, that Apodaca may become the fall guy, which would be, as we said earlier, at least I said, ludicrous in my mind for a guy who's done a very good job as pitching coach of the Mets.
It was Bob Apodaca who came with Bobby Valentine. They both were manager and pitching coach and manager respectively for the Norfolk Tides when Dallas Green was fired in August of 1996. In 97, the Mets won 88 games. In 98, the Mets won 88 games. The failure to get to postseason last year was critical in the growth of this organization. If they get to postseason and then make all the moves that they made, they go into making those moves with a great deal more confidence than losing the last 5 games of the season.
And if you want to study opposites, you look in the other dugout. Joe Torre has been such a calming influence here at Yankee Stadium, and they've done nothing but succeed under him. And again, Bobby Valentine, a very controversial figure. He has his detractors. He has his supporters. Some of the biggest names in baseball. You look at his winning percentage, 3 games under the 500 mark. He's done a nice job with these Mets the last couple of years, but when it starts to roll downhill, then people start coming out of the bushes to take their shots at a guy who has had his problems with people over the years. And again, he's had some people that have really supported him. When I say their shots, I'm talking about comments. Brian McRae has been very open about his criticism of Bobby Valentine. That's into the corner. Play by Carrasco, as has Bobby Bonilla. A 1-2-3 inning for the Yankees as we go to the bottom of the 8th. They lead the Mets by 3.
Fox Saturday Baseball is brought to you by Nextel. You've never used a phone like this before. By A&W. With A&W, it's good to be thick-headed. By Fram Extra Guard, the only filter with the rough, textured, sure grip top. It makes changing your filter a lot easier. And by Brewery Fresh Budweiser, official beer of Major League Baseball. This Bud's for you.
A look at LaGuardia in the foreground. In the background, Shea Stadium, where we will be next Saturday for a rematch of that 1986 World Series. The Boston Red Sox and the New York Mets. Orioles and Braves as well early next Saturday, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. More sounds of the game next week. New shortstop is Luis Lopez, takes over for Ordonez as Turk Wendell takes over for Watson, who went 3 innings, no runs on 2 hits, 2 intentional walks, a strikeout. And it's Wendell making his 31st appearance of the year. It's tops in the major leagues. 1 ball, 1 strike on Posada.
The Yankees striking against the starters of the Mets, and we mentioned back in the 3rd, 4th inning, if they were going to get the New York Mets, who had a 3-0 lead, don't forget, in this ball game, they're going to have to get them early, because this bullpen can shut you down, and for the most part, that's what Watson has done and Wendell is trying to do.
That's the definition of getting jammed, as Posada's jammed by Wendell, 1 down. Posada 0 for 4, and Tony Tarasco will come to the plate. 1 out of 3 with a double and a run scored. The closer, Mariano Rivera, who has saved 10 straight games in his opportunities to pick up saves. He's 10 for his last 10, 14 overall, getting ready for the ninth. Tarasco with 1 out, nobody on. Ooh. Piazza missed it. Darrell Cousins, his right leg didn't. That hurt.
Turk Wendell with that ritual where he slams the rosin bag down at Shea Stadium. He has not done that here at Yankee Stadium.
It is a far cry from what he used to do. As superstitious as anybody you'll run across.
Think he's ever stepped on a white line ever in his life?
No.
No.
Hops over the foul lines. That's foul. That's why he hops over. They can be your friend, that foul line. Turk Wendell with a 2 ball, 1 strike count on Tarasco. He used to, and it's an old story now, he used to brush his teeth after every half inning. Just feverishly brush his teeth. He used to eat licorice, black licorice, during the half inning. Used to make, I believe, sign of the cross behind the mound on the backside of the mound before he walked up on top. And now it's kind of mad Hungarian Al Raboski-esque as he turns his back on home plate, wheels around and slams the rosin bag down on the pitching mound. That's what it's come to, and he doesn't step on white lines. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Tarasco. Good play by Alfonso. He stayed down on it. 2 up, 2 down. Listening to Derek Jeter and his thoughts on this season with regard to Joe Torre.
Well, I think his return pretty much put an end to any stories we had in spring training. I mean, any questions that we had. You know, right after his surgery, he came in. He was in and out of the clubhouse, so we had a chance to see him during the period he was gone. But we knew he wasn't coming back until he was 100% healthy. And once he returned, we all knew that it was the end to the story. Cancer, anytime you hear the cancer word, it's something that it was real serious. And everyone was concerned, and he brings a certain sense of calmness to our team. So it was great to have him back.
I think those sentiments echoed throughout that entire Yankee clubhouse. 1 ball, 1 strike on Brocious, who's 2 out of 3 today. Bases empty, 2 down. Attendance here today, 55,000. 935. Little fly ball to the right side. Alfonso puts it away. The Yankees go in order in the 8th. To look at Joe Torre, they'll get around 170,000 for the 3 games this weekend. Interleague baseball, good for New York. A look at Mariano Rivera in to try to save it again for the Yankees against the Mets. It's time for today's play of the game, brought to you by Energizer. And Tim, this one's easy to pick.
This might be the play of the year already. Great play by Hernandez. Couldn't get it out of his glove, so he throws the glove and the ball to Tino Martinez. That's fun.
And he did it the tough way, overhand, and Martinez was there to catch it for the out. That was back in the 2nd inning. And a ball hit back to the mound by Ordonez. Here is Mariano Rivera. Great numbers. 14 saves and an ERA of 1.64.
I wonder if Orlando Hernandez has ever done that before in his life.
Looked like he had.
Yeah, it did.
Here's Cedeno, the number 9 hitter, leading it off and taking a strike. It's like having 2 leadoff hitters back-to-back here in the 9th inning for the Mets, who trail by 3. Cedeno has been on base twice. Blistering pitch in there low. 1 ball, 1 strike. The New York Mets have lost 7 in a row. Trying to rally to avoid number 8. That won't help. High hopper did not block. 1 down. Folks, this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. The accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without expressed written consent. 1 out, and in walks Ricky Henderson. The Mets wondering if this losing streak will grow to 8, with the unenviable task of trying to break that 8-game losing streak tomorrow night against Roger Clemens, who will be shooting for his 21st consecutive decision in his favor. Streaks all over the place.
Yep, he's 4 shy of the major league record, of tying the major league record set by Carl Hubble back in the mid-30s of 24 in a row.
1 ball, 1 strike on Ricky Henderson, 0 for 3 with a walk.
Last time Roger Clemens lost a game was last May 29th, pitching for the Blue Jays. Cleveland Indians beat him and the Blue Jays on May 29th of '98. That's the last time he has lost.
Henderson leans back from ball 2, 2-1. Most consecutive victories since 1900. Clemens up to 20 between last year and this. Hubble, Elroy Face in front of him. Going for number 21 tomorrow night. 2 balls and a strike. Henderson chased one there. 2-2. 95 miles per hour from Mariano Rivera.
And Ricky, a bit miffed. You rarely see him go out of the strike zone and swing at bad pitches, but he did then.
And now Rivera has him set up for a strikeout. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Into right field, O'Neill. 2 out. Tonight, the foot races and the suspect who came down the hard way on cops. Then he rides the rails, murdering along the way. Help police catch this suspected serial killer on an all-new America's Most Wanted tonight on Fox. 8 Eastern, 7 Central. What the Mets most want is a 2-out rally, but they're down by 3 against one of the game's best closers. Alfonso takes a ball. Strong start from El Duque today. Great bullpen work for the Yankees when they needed it in the 7th inning. And the big hitters for the Mets did not come through. Down by 3, runners at first and third, nobody out. Olerud struck out against Stanton. Mendoza came in to strike out Piazza, and Bonilla back-to-back threat over, and quite possibly game over at that point.
And the Mets have not had a base runner since.
Bullpen perfect today for the Yankees so far. The 1-1 to Alfonso. 2 balls and a strike. Olerud hoping to get a chance. He waits on deck. Mets may be down to their final strike. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Alfonso. The front of the upper deck, off to the right, still 2-2. (6-3) Yankees over the Mets. The Mets in 3rd place now in the National League East, to fall under the 500 mark here today. Just outside, and Darrell Cousins flinched but didn't ring him up. Alfonso trying to extend it. Up the middle, base hit Alfonso. And this game's still alive. A chance for the Mets with a 2-out single from their number 2 hitter.
Considering the fact that 2 of the best Met hitters are coming up, Olerud, if Olerud gets on, it would be a dramatic confrontation between Piazza and Rivera. Good hitting by Alfonso, his 3rd single of the afternoon.
3 out of 5. And now for Bobby Valentine, John Olerud. Ball 1. Mike Piazza waits on deck. If he bats here in the 9th inning, he will represent the tying run. It's up to Olerud to get him to the plate. Couldn't hold up, a ball and a strike. Mariano Rivera in search of save number 15. Alfonso taking second as Olerud swings at strike 2, and it's 1-2. And again, the Mets may be down to their final strike.
The reason Alfonso took second is because the Yankees were giving it to him, playing it as though nobody were on. Tino Martinez all the way back in his position at first base.
The 1-2 to Olerud. Third base side for Brocious. Just out of his reach, 1 row back. Bobby Valentine and the New York Mets next Saturday on the Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week at home against the Red Sox. Interleague play will continue. The first place Boston Red Sox. Again, the 1-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And it's getting awfully interesting here in the 9th inning. A hit by Alfonso, 3-2 on Olerud, and Mike Piazza on deck. Three-two pitch. Into shallow left. In is Carrasco. Game over. And the Yankees take the first 2 games of this 3-game set. And our first installment of Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week goes to the Yankees, and the Mets' troubles continue.
They continue. They will be facing Roger Clemens tomorrow night. And as we said in our pregame remarks, the vice continues to tighten.
A look at Masato Yoshi, not good enough today. The Yankees win another. The final today, 6-3 for Tim McCarver and Kurt Menefee. I'm Joe Buck saying so long from Yankee Stadium, where the Yankees take it 6-3 over their crosstown rivals, the New York Mets. Interleague Baseball. And you've been watching Fox Sports coverage of Major League Baseball. Good evening from Yankee Stadium.